your chat settings over from hosts and panelists over to everyone, please.
Williamsport, PA. I'm from Scranton, so pretty close.
Your chat settings.
Scranton.
Zach, Columbus, New York.
Hey, New York. Hey.
Hey. Not really New York. I'm more like Canada.
Might as well be.
Michigan, Sweden, South Africa. Like Canada, but with guns. That was a good one, Gregory. Detroit, Greensboro, Brooklyn. We got a Brooklyn. Virginia, Chicago, Denver.
Lisbon. Portugal is one of my favorite places on earth.
Tampa. Yes, please. We go west of Tampa every year. Go to Madeira Beach.
I heard a lot of Americans are moving to Lisbon.
I could totally live there for a while.
I've heard. I heard it's really nice.
I might live down in Porto. It's like the other bigger city. But Lisbon's amazing too.
Dallas, Boston, Houston, Seattle,
Canton, Ohio.
Canton.
Pro Football Hall of Fame. Maybe we have a Hall of Famer in our midst.
In the future, we should have to pronounce the city and state in the colloquial accent of the region.
That could get really offensive pretty
Interesting.
quickly.
Really quickly, yeah. Also have to spend some time studying.
I'd have to do Jake's accent. Jake, you have like a
Rochester.
is that Rochester? Because it sounds Midwesty to me.
Oh, dude, one of my best friends from Rochester. I always said that. I said you sound like you're from like Twin City, Minnesota.
Yeah,
Or Minnesota. It has that like Minnesota. It has that tone to it, like
yeah. I didn't know that was a Rochester thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Similar latitude. It's a latitude thing.
Minnesota.
So people in like Oregon have the same twang.
Yeah. It's funny. Yeah, Fargo-esque, yeah, totally.
Do y'all ever have these challenging evening hours? Depends on whose evening we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Right. This is an evening challenge for certain people.
It is quite tricky to find a time that works for everyone. This actually works pretty well for most places on the planet.
Yeah.
Get morning Australia, evening in Europe, midday in the US.
Actually, let me ask a question. Who's here that wasn't here day one? Put a 1 in the chat if you weren't here day one. And you guys watched the replays and then showed up for day 2.
Put a
I'm
2
assuming.
if you watched the replays. Put a 3 in chat if you didn't watch the replays.
Okay, cool. So sending out the replays is helpful then, I'm assuming. Cool. Yes. Cool. Beautiful.
Yeah, we'll continue to send those out.
Yep. I'll send them out again today.
Yeah, sorry for the recording in mono yesterday. It was my fault. They updated my recording software and now I have to do an extra step to get it in stereo. So today will be in stereo, but yesterday was in mono. It wasn't too important though yesterday. What was y'all's biggest takeaway from yesterday? If you were here, the poopy mix sounds best in mono. Mix it right.
Poopy mix, or sorry, sad mix.
Did we get pushback on Poopy Mix? Is that
Ears. Yeah, we're just trying to be a little more sophisticated.
We're more sophisticated than that, Michael.
the suboptimal mix?
We're trying to go from like Rochester vibes to Buffalo vibes.
Uh,
At least.
Buffalo.
there's a lot of jokes there.
Mhm.
I'm not even gonna dig in.
I bet. I would say there's a lot of jokes there, dude. I like that someone said transients. That's
Yep.
like my. I love that. Like I love someone said transients.
Yesterday was a little more entertaining than the previous one, someone said.
Oh, is that so?
Well,
I changed it up a little bit for y'all.
Ooh.
I changed it up
adding
a
a
little
little
for you.
smoke and
I was trying
mirrors.
to improve. Did it
More
give you a different lens to look at things through? Was that useful when you went back to your mixes?
Mm.
Did it give you something, a different way to look at things?
Someone said reference tracks. Yep.
Who's here on day 2 that this is their first Fix the Mix ever? Again, drop a 1 in chat. First.
First fix the mix.
First day 2 ever. This is exciting.
It's gonna get serious now.
This is where,
yeah.
yeah, it's where I duck out nice and early and let you guys do all the
Nerd out.
yeah.
Nerd up.
Nerd
I just
out.
leave it running and then I'll like come up 4 hours later and you guys are like, you hear that ceiling fan in the background? I'm gonna take that out now. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Good Lord.
It's a little weird after 3 or 4 hours
Yeah.
sometimes.
It
It's gotten
does.
weird. We'll
Hear
keep
that
it a
air
little shorter
conditioning?
than that today.
I
There's
like
a little
it.
air conditioning at 10K here that's coming through.
We've had some 5 or 6 hour,
Yeah.
and it definitely got weird for the last hour. Things start to fall apart.
I bet.
Get a little punchy.
Conversations get a little interesting.
Off the wall. Yeah,
Nick,
I bet.
if Nick asks when the free plugin is available again, I'm gonna drive up to Ohio or wherever you're from, and I'm gonna give you a big bear hug.
Yeah. Gonna get ya. It's gonna get ya.
Nick's trolling us. For those who don't know, he's one of our students.
Gotcha.
Nick's our paid plant who talks about how good all our program is.
Yeah, right.
We just Venmo him 10 grand every month.
Ooh, that's
Steep.
Nick had a little Pro Q demonstration in our coaching call today.
Big day.
Yeah. He led a little mid-side lesson.
cool.
Gregory asking if this is a D'Angelico in the background. Yes, this is. I think I said this on the last Fix the Mix. When I quit my job on Wall Street, I said I was going to practice guitar for 8 hours a day until I was a master at it. And I think I went for like 3 weeks practicing for like 6 hours a day. And then I got carpal tunnel and I don't think I ever picked it up since.
Are you serious? You
Yeah.
got carpal tunnel?
Yeah.
Oh shit.
But
So
it's
your hand
nice.
was seizing, but it's nice.
It is nice. It looks great in the background.
Oh, the carpal tunnel's nice. That's what it
Mhm.
sounded like.
Nice.
Yeah.
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 So your hand seizing. Yeah, like, I'm
What,
like,
that guitar over there?
I love when I
Dude,
pick up
that's-
a gallon of milk and my arm just kind of like dies at my
Mhm.
side.
I'm stuck in a permanent G chord for like the rest of my life.
I can only play G.
Dude, I got a new 7-string coming.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Enjoy that.
I am excited.
You want a D'Angelico? 10 grand.
10 grand.
I'll sign it.
Got
Devon,
your stank on it.
have you ever heard Jake shred, Devon?
No, I never ever.
Yeah, he can shreddy
You can
shred.
shred?
We'll do
Ready
the
shred?
Yeah.
we'll do the guitar challenge one of these days.
Okay. As soon as you said you was getting a 7-string, I was like, oh, all right. I see what's going on here. People don't just get a 7-string.
I know this guy.
Yeah.
Which 7-string? The chat wants to know.
It's some Ibanez. I don't know.
Mm.
Let's see.
Oh, is it Tim? Is it because I think Tim Henson has a 7-string with Ibanez, if I'm not bugging.
It's not it's not his signature.
Oh, okay.
RG Premium.
It's not the 7320. Yeah, it's a premium. Brian. Yeah. It's RG premium.
RG Premium. Oh,
Beautiful finish. Beautiful finish. And you get to like, I got it through Sweetwater. You get to choose your exact guitar, and like the finish is different on each one because the wood cuts, right? Yeah, it was sick. So I got to pick out which one I wanted.
that's what's up.
You know what I've got coming next week is my standing producer desk.
Oh, did you get one that?
Really? Did you get
Yeah.
the automated one?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, cool.
I'm trading in the output, the platform for it's like AZ Studio. It's a standing desk. And then I got a walking pad right here that's getting ready to get set up. I'm about to get freaking shredded on these calls. It's gonna be incredible.
I thought about getting one of those standing desks, Michael. And then I realized I'd have to give up being fat. So I just decided.
I was gonna get one of those standing desks, but then I realized I like to
Wasn't
sit
worth
too
it.
much.
Yeah,
It wasn't worth it.
I was out.
I want to
No.
look into the standing desk. I've heard great things, and it would be fun sometime to occasionally like, oh, let me stand up, like I'm in the zone, kind of thing.
Yeah. Dude, I'll send you the link for the one I got. It was very expensive, but it's looks like it's pretty sweet.
Exactly.
Bad. I was
Zach.
like, send it.
It would change my room curve. I have
Oh wow.
I have a bass trap right in the middle of the room, and it's me.
It's
I am the trap.
If I lose weight,
I am
I'll
absorption.
have to spend like $3,000 on bass traps if I lose weight. It's just not going to happen, folks.
That's actually a pretty funny T-shirt, like a nerdy T-shirt.
I never have to treat my listening position.
I'm a bass trap.
I'm a bass trap, a walk-in bass trap.
Yeah.
Look out!
Oh,
Walking bass.
dude, too much.
I'm about to make that shirt.
We
I'm a
we
walking
we,
bass trap.
we have some merch in our community store. I don't know if you saw that, Devon. We could
Oh,
I'm a bass
no, I
trap.
didn't.
Yeah.
Oh, that's dope. That's dope.
Oh yeah, we gotta send you some master.
You should design some stuff.
I would love to. Heck yeah.
Fun, yeah.
I got nerdy jokes. I got
Dude,
really nerdy
Devon,
jokes.
hit me up later this week. I'll get you some merch. I forgot to send that to you. I was gonna
Okay.
send that to you.
Say less. Say less.
Yeah.
I'll hit you this week.
Cool.
All
Let's
right.
do
Well,
it.
should we jump in?
Let's do it. 932 in the chat. We're ready to jump in. All right. Yep. Brrr. We scrolling.
Ooh, I saw a 9, 3, 2,
Oh,
Oh.
That's funny.
that's just incorrect.
Well,
That's just incorrect.
if you're here, you made it through day one, you didn't get scared off, you're back with us. We're happy to have you. Thanks for coming back. Hopefully day one was inspiring on some level, gave you something to chew on, give you a new way to look at things. That's what it's all about. A little gold nugget here or there. That's why we do these. That was a really fun session though. If you haven't watched it, feel free to go back, check it out. Let me move my little thing here for the recording. Yeah, go check it out. But yeah, welcome back if you're here for day 2. This is going to be a lot of fun. We're actually going to dive in and really get to know someone else's mix process, which is kind of cool. You know, we've taught you a certain way. If you've been here before, we've taught you that way for a while now, and it's a good foundational way. It's not like even a beginner way or something like that. I still use the methods we use. Jake uses those methods, but it's also really valuable to get perspectives from other people who may do things a little bit differently. That's totally okay. And I think the goal with all of this is find what works for your workflow. If you're familiar with the way we teach it, try some of this new stuff and see if any of it really works for you. And we'll go into all that today. It's gonna be a lot of fun to watch Devon work and redeem himself from the sad mix that we all experienced yesterday. That was your mix, right, Devon?
No way on earth. That
You
was
won't
not my
even
mix
play
style.
with it.
Not at all.
I don't know if any of you saw, but Jake posted a video, right? You posted it in the Fix the Mix community on School.
Yeah.
It showed what he did to mess it up, and it wasn't that much stuff. That just shows you how bad you can make something with like 5 plugins. And it was stuff
Yes.
that you see on YouTube videos. It's stuff you see people like teach, but out of context and used improperly, just messed
Right.
like stereo wideners and boosting certain things and low end tricks and stuff like that. He was just doing and replicating some of the stuff you might see, and obviously it was kind of overdone intentionally to prove the point. But it isn't. It is stuff that you see people teach out there. So if you don't understand the basics, if you don't understand the fundamentals, and you try to use some of that stuff that worked in one video over here in isolation and use it in your own situation, you'll find that a lot of time that won't translate. And I think that's a frustration a lot of people express, is the stuff, the tips and tricks that fix all that I'm learning on YouTube. When I try it on my stuff, it's not translating the same, and it's because there's something else missing. So that, I thought hopefully that video was interesting for y'all. But you should have on as far as homework from day one. Hopefully you were able to go in and bounce out what would be considered a stereo master, pull it into a new session, and use some of the tools that we talked about, frequency analyzers, look at the dynamics, look at the space, apply limiters, see if it enhances some of the problems. Hopefully you're able to do some of that stuff, write down what you observed. And so now today we can kind of start fresh. At the end of today, we're going to have you start fresh on some stuff with your mix, take those new perspectives that you wrote down, the information that we're about to get from Devon today, and kind of explore a new way to approach mixing. So that should be really fun. If you didn't and you weren't able to do that, go back. It's worth doing this stuff. It's the way we practice. That's the way we get better, is actually doing. It's easy to listen, but once you get in there, you learn a lot more. I want to touch on, before we get into Devon's stuff today, just coming back to that power of objectivity that we talked about yesterday. What's the next level with that? What does that mean for us? I'm going to express to you my feeling, and from what I've learned over the last several years, many years teaching mastering engineers, why I think you should probably learn mastering. You should go in depth in some of this more technical left brain stuff. It's not going to hurt you. It's only going to actually help you and make you better. And even if you're someone like a self-producing artist, you're a creative, I still think you should learn this stuff. And I think it's a myth that I want to dispel, that you can't mix and master your own stuff. I used to believe that. I really did. I was told that. I'm sure you've all heard it before, but it's a total myth. And I've learned this from students over the years. We would have people come in and we were teaching them mastering who were producers. And there were even experiences, I think Michael even had an experience like this with when he was learning this stuff, where the Grammy award-winning mastering engineer sent a master back that was worse than what he could do because he had the vision. And that mastering engineer let him know, now that you know and understand these tools, you have the ability to take the vision in your head and actually make it come to life in a way that nobody else can. The reason most of the time we don't have we don't mix and master our own stuff is because we're lacking perspective and we're lacking the skill set to do it properly. But if you approach it the right way, compartmentalize things properly, it can actually be a benefit to you, to enhancing the vision you have in your head to something that's really, really special. I think you can, I've seen it time and again where you can push things farther than anyone else can if you do it right. You can mix and master your own material. And if you are a self-producing artist, what you learn is the mistakes, and you stop making them. Like we talked about yesterday, it's going to inform you. When you have this end in mind perspective, when you're able to think like a mastering engineer, like what we talked about yesterday, you see all the stuff that adds up to a master be, or a mix that you're trying to master be something that you can take to the next level, or something that you have to fix a bunch of problems and you can't really take that far. And you see all the reasons why. And so learning this technical side will inform not just your mixing, but even the production choices, even the choices you make in recording. You'll do things differently all through the process. And a song really is a million little choices from the start all the way to the end that you make. And once you refine that process, that's when the magic can really start to happen. But you have to have that end in mind perspective to really do that. That's why we teach in our program, we actually teach everything in reverse. We start with the foundational objective stuff with mastering. And what we found is that it doesn't diminish people's creativity, it unlocks creativity. How many of you have had a hard time or had this experience where you have this great idea, but then when you try to get it to happen, when you try to get it to come out of the speakers the way you hear it in your head, it just won't work? Have you ever had that kind of experience? I know that I have earlier in my career, and it's really frustrating. And it's because these creative moments come along for us. These inspired moments of creativity come along for us. We're trying to get these ideas out, but truly what it falls back on is a lack of this objective technical understanding. All that will do is allow you in those moments of creative inspiration to have a path to understand how to control sound and get exactly what you're hearing in your head to come out. It enhances the creative side of you. It unlocks it. You don't have to think about how to do it. It becomes instinctual to you. And when it becomes instinctual to you, creativity can be explored at a much deeper level. Most people hit a brick wall. They hit an intermediate plateau with their progression because their creativity supersedes or surpasses their technical ability. And when that happens, you stop. And so you have to catch up. And it's not the fun stuff sometimes to learn and practice. It's not the most exciting part or why we got into music, to do ear training or really practice our tools, but it is the thing that will eventually unlock you. We understand this principle just from working with people over the years. So it'll give you this end in mind perspective. It will unlock creativity. And for mix engineers, I want to suggest, if you're just doing mixes for people and you've been sending mastering out to other people, or you've been doing kind of like a limiter master just on the mix bus or something like that and calling it good, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot. You should learn mastering. And I'll explain monetarily why you should do it, but also for the similar reasons that I was just explaining for the self-producing artists. If you learn this stuff, it's going to enhance your ability to push back not only on your own mixes that maybe you're doing for yourself, but for your clients' mixes. And that's a huge value you can offer people. When people come to me for mixing or mastering, I'm able to what we call in our program, push back on the production or on the mix in a way that's really valuable to the client. I can give people suggestions and I can say, hey, if you'll make this tweak and you'll make this tweak, because I have a perspective of what's going to happen in the mastering process. If you make these changes, I can actually take your master much farther. And they're so thankful for that, because they do that and they go, this is better than I could have imagined. And that's a great way to work with people. It's something that AI won't be able to offer for a very, very long time. If you're worried about AI taking over our mix and mastering jobs, they're not going to, because mix and mastering is about human relationships with people. It's about communication. It's about expectation management. It's about understanding the human nuance, emotion. And I think it's going to be a long time before AI takes that. And so we have to do the things AI can't do. We have to be the ones talking to people, connecting with people, hopping on calls with people, picking their brain, understanding their minds. So it gives you an opportunity to give something. I give free mix notes back to my clients. I give free mastering notes back to my clients. If you do this, I can take it farther. And it's super valuable to them. So you can offer mix notes. Sometimes, just to clarify though, in case you start doing this and I don't want to send you down the wrong path, mix notes only works if it's pretty close to good. Sometimes the engineer who's working on it isn't capable of taking it to where it needs to go. You need to be aware of that too. And there'll be times where you probably need to offer to mix, or at least manage expectations that certain things won't be able to be done because things aren't at a high enough level yet. That's all about communication. And then there's even the opportunity to say no. I always like to talk to people about this, because I think one of the biggest problems in working with people and in their careers is that people have a bad mindset about the kind of clientele they should be looking for. They get caught up and spin their wheels taking the project for the guy down the road that wants to pay you less, wants the discount. Their stuff isn't very good, and they're never happy with the output. Truth is that the clients that pay me the most money are always the happiest clients. The clients that pay me the least amount of money are the ones that are always unhappy, even though I'm giving them a deal, because their stuff isn't usually as good, and they don't understand the process. So we have to get away from spinning our tires when we're ready, that is, from spinning our tires and working with people that won't appreciate what we do, who don't pay us enough to have a living wage, to find the kinds of clientele that are out there who will pay you for good work, and have the mindset that those are the people that I'm going to focus on. So it's okay to say no. It's important to say no. We need to say no more often and value our time more and value what we're worth more. It's better for you to market yourself, spend your time marketing yourself, than working for a poverty wage for someone who won't appreciate your work anyway and gives you no credit that you can stand on. And it all comes down to expectation management and communication. Skill is 20% of what will make you successful in this. 80% is how you deal with clients and the way you speak to them. Skill is important, but it's not going to get you there. You can have all the skill in the world if you have bad communication, bad expectation management. You're working with artists with big egos all the time. You're going to find yourself in lots of rabbit holes with lots of people and a lot of people who are unhappy. So there's a lot of reasons to learn this technical side at a really high level to enhance it. And if you are a mix engineer and you're not offering mastering, you're leaving a ton of money on the table. Let me talk to you a little bit about the economy of mastering. You know, with mixing, I try to get my students to a place where they can get a mix done in 4 to 6 hours. Does that sound about right, Devon?
For sure. I was going to say,
Where
yeah, that's
you're
like
at?
dead on. Yeah.
And hopefully you could charge at least, right? You can go up from here, but at least $400 to $600. So you're getting roughly $100 per hour, which is that's a great living wage, right? If you could be booked doing that, you can make good money.
Sure.
But a lot of people just throw the master on there and don't realize it can be compartmentalized. Mastering is actually my best dollar per hour thing that I do. It's much more highly leveraged. Mastering is hard to learn how to do. It takes training. It takes years of work. But once you do it, it actually doesn't take a ton of time. The communication part with clients can take a little bit of time, and doing things the right way and rolling the red carpet out for people, which I think you should do. But the mastering itself may take 10 to 15 minutes, and you can charge $75 to $100 per master. And so your hourly rate, aside from the communication part and bouncing things out and sending things, which would reduce this a little bit, but you're at $400 or $500 per hour that you're leaving on the table if you are compartmentalizing mastering as a separate process. You got to start doing it. There's so much, and marketing yourself just as a mastering engineer sometimes, if you don't want to do mixing. I even have artists in our program who don't want to be mix and mastering engineers. That's not what they're into. They're trying to build their artist profile, but they got good at mastering because they went through the program and they got good enough that they could charge for it. And so they're supporting their artist self by leveraging a highly leverageable dollar per hour, doing mastering for people, doing like 10 projects a month and making enough to live on and have money to market their artist profile. It's awesome. So there's a lot there. Please don't leave money on the table if you're not breaking out mastering into a separate process and charging for that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Enough about mastering. I love it. I love to talk about it. The objective part is what people are missing. I really like to go into depth about that. I hope you understand what I mean by all of that. But it is time to switch gears to mixing. And I'll keep this pretty short. I'm going to let Devon do most of the talking today with this because he has a different way to go about this that I think is really powerful. But let me give you a couple of things to watch for. The day 1, day 2 breakdown will be this. He's already prepped the session, right? And it's all edited. You've already done that, right, Devon?
Yes, sir.
Today, he's going to be working on relationships and problems. and he's going to talk to us about mixed bus safety nuts, and I'll explain about those last two things a little bit more in depth in just a second. Day 2, he's going to work on enhancement. So day 1, it's about relationships and fixing problems. Day 2 is more about enhancement and color and space. So that's what we'll work on tomorrow. So what does that mean a little bit? Well, in terms of building relationships, the way that Devon's going to approach this is unique. He starts with the relationship between the kick, snare, and vocal first. He wants to get those really dialed in, and he has a way of approaching that will make a lot of sense as he explains it. But that's his process, and he wants to make sure those things are really, really on point, really dialed in before he does anything else. And then he builds around those elements. And what's very interesting is he'll do his bass very last. And as he was explaining to me why he does that, I saw some pretty good reasoning behind that. And a lot of people struggle with the low ed part of it. And doing it very last gives you an opportunity that he'll explain in demonstration how to make sure you're getting your bass right every time based upon the reference, and waiting to do it till the end. So he'll dive into that. So watch for these things today. That's how he's going to approach it, which will be different from what we normally do. Usually on day 2, we do volume only mixes, as if you've been to these before. That's not how Devon's going to do it. He's going to do a lot of volume mixing, but he's also going to do some other stuff today. And that's just part of his process. So again, try things on. It's different. It's okay. He's also an advanced mixing engineer. And so he knows the fundamentals, and he's also found some things that work for his workflow that are outside of kind of those fundamental principles. And that's totally okay. For those of you who are newer, take some of this stuff with a grain of salt. There are some foundational things you probably still need to learn, but these will still be something that'll be valuable for you at some point. He also uses some mix bus safety nuts, we'll call them. Now, we've talked in the past about how we don't encourage actually mixing into any mix bus processing. If you've been with us before, you know that we kind of have been against that for the reasoning of that if you know what you're doing and you understand mastering, you don't need to do what a lot of people do, which is mix into these big compressors or limiters or, all this kind of stuff, because that really just covers up problems a lot of times and tricks people into thinking they're further along than they are. If you have a little bit of imagination about mixing, you can know what mastering is going to do, leave room for it, and move forward from there. However, Devon's not using them for the reasons why a lot of people do them that are damaging that I just explained. He actually uses them more for what we talked about yesterday. He's using mastering tools to inform his mixing. So he'll use a limiter, but he's using it mostly to see his dynamic range. He'll explain more about what he's really shooting for with that, but he wants to make sure his dynamic range across his whole mix is within a certain parameter. So he's using a limiter to see that. And I think that could actually be a really useful thing for people to do. If you understand what I'm talking about with this, he can break this down more, but he's using it again, a mastering tool to gain insight, which I'm all about, into his mix. Same thing with a tool he's going to use called the God particle, which is used to essentially check frequency balance, to make sure none of his frequencies are out of alignment. And it's like his PAS analyzer that we were using yesterday. It's a different tool, but it's kind of doing the same thing, keeping him in check and letting him know where his frequencies are across the board. So again, I'm all about these, even though he's kind of doing something different than we do in terms of mix bus stuff. I love the way he's using it. I think this could be really valuable for some of you who kind of are at that level to understand some of this stuff. So with that said, those are the things to watch for. I'll let Devon break it down a lot more. He's going to go into a lot of detail, not only about what he's already done on the mix, but what he's going to do today. And we can go from there and learn so much from him. I'm excited to watch him work today. Devon, you're up, man. It's all you.
All right. First and foremost, let me just get my screen shared popping, and then we can go. Okay, can everyone see my screen right now? Just give me a 1 in the chat if you can see my screen. Well, my guy Jake can see my screen, so I think I'm good. Okay, so long story short, basically what Caleb is saying, as far as what you guys, if you are part of the program or just have your own ideologies and beliefs and what you've learned or on the internet, whether you went to other schools or things of that nature, what you're about to see me do is a bunch of different tricks that I've learned over the course of my career as a mix engineer. Now, understand that these things are deeply, deeply rooted in fundamentals, which you're not going to be losing anything if you have an idea of the fundamentals. But understand that in order for me to be doing some of these unorthodox things that you're going to see me do, you have to understand the fundamentals. Like, that's the most important thing I want you guys to keep in the back of your mind. But I also am going to show you some things that you're probably going to question and ask questions, and that's okay. There's 2 words before we start that I just want you to burn in your head right now. The 2 words as an engineer that I just live by. Shout out to my guy Killshot. I never use the words, or I just, as a mix engineer, I don't do always and never. I don't tie myself to those 2 words because at the end of the day, there's so many things that I've done by, like I'm sure you have, by mistake, and it sounds better. I go off of what feels right, and I go off of, what is pleasing to my ear. So with that being said, locked in with my fundamentals has given me all of these tricks and tools that I've learned over the course of my career. So always and never. Balling it up, I'm throwing it away, and now I'm going to show you some of the stuff in my process. All right. So this right here is my session. As you can see, I made sure that I picked a song that was fairly simple. As you can see, if we just take a look at the session for what it is first, so I can give you a lay of the land so you can understand exactly what I have going on in the session. So here you see kick, snare, snare parallel. Don't worry about those things. I'll explain. You see perk loop, you see hat loop, you see drum bus, you see another drum bus, you see a drum parallel. Now let's stop right there. What did you notice? You notice that I have it organized where all my drums are sitting at the top. So that's all my drum stuff, okay? That's my organization. That feels good to me. I love doing it that way, where my drums are sitting right at the top. So I know this is the drum section up here. So just keep that in mind. If we scroll down, right underneath the drums, you'll see live bass line, synth bass line. And basically with this, my next step in as far as my hierarchy and as far as my organization is, I like to put my bass stuff underneath my drums. Once again, always and never throwing it in the garbage. It's just something that I have developed and how I like to organize my session. This works for me. I know where everything is at all times when it comes to organizing my stuff. Next thing you'll see down here is you'll see guitar. Now, ironically, we only have one instrument that's going throughout this entire song, which brings its own challenges, right? Because now that you're seeing, okay, well, there's only really one melodic kind of instrument sound in this entire mix, you may have to ask yourself, well, how are we going to use this instrument to make it full, to fill up the spectrum and make it feel like there's a lot going on, or just fill up that stereo space? This is going to be great. Stay with me, but just know there's only one real melodic instrument as far as besides the bass in this entire mix, just a guitar. Okay. Next, underneath the instruments, you'll see vocals. And that would be basically my lead vocals, that would be backgrounds, etc. if you have them. Ironically, in this session, we only have one vocal, which is the lead. And then underneath here, and don't worry, I'm skipping some of these things that you see in the in this color right here. Don't worry about that. I'll explain. I don't want to confuse you. Just know where everything is. Right underneath, you'll see my subgroups. You'll see bass, music, vocals and effects, drums. Now, what is this and why do I do this? You see 4 subgroups that are set up in my session. Basically, all the bass instruments and all the bass signals are going to this one fader that you see right here, bass. All the music, guitar, if there were pads, if there were synths, this will be going to the music bus. The vocals and effects bus, this will be all of my vocals, leads, backgrounds, ad-libs, including my effects. Effects meaning long verb, short verb, delays. All of that is feeding one bus or subgroup. And then lastly, you see drums. And that's basically snare, kick, and all that other stuff. Why do I do this, and why can this save your life when it comes to anything you're doing in your mix process? It gives you so much control and so much safety in your mix when you're done or in the process. Say, for instance, you have a client, and the client says, hey, can you do me a favor? Can you just turn up the vocals 3 dB? Guess what? It's easy for me now because my subgroup with all my plugins, post fader, and the whole 9, all I got to do is go to my subgroup and turn up the music a little bit, or excuse me, turn up the vocals a little bit, 3dB. I can do it easily right from these subgroups. Same thing with the drums. If they say, hey, I need a little bit more of the drums, or I need a little bit more of the music, I can do it from one fader, easy, simple, and I know because everything is feeding these 4 subgroups. So that's why I have these subgroups. So no, these subgroups are my heart and soul of the entire mix. I'm gonna come back to that in a second. Right underneath that, you see all my effects. And all my effects meaning short verb, long verb, fourth, all my time-based effects. This is basically gonna be at the very end of my entire session. One little tidbit I will note is you see white noise here. And basically, this is a little trick. I don't know if you might take this from me or not. 1 second, let me just move this little thing over. I don't know if you might take this from me or not. But basically what I like to do on all my own personal music, this is for my artists out there, is I like to put a little bit of white noise underneath all my music. Why? We'll get into later. But I've learned this trick from Max Martin, huge producer. And it adds a certain dimension, depth, feeling, grittiness, color to my mix that when it's gone, it feels stale and it just adds something to my mix. We'll get into that. That's a really, really super, super deep conversation, but I just want you to be aware of it in my session of this little bitty, itty bitty thing of white noise in my session. You can't even hear it right now, but right now, if you crank your speakers, you can probably hear a little bit of that kind of feeling, which I'll get to you back when we go down the line. Okay, so that's my entire session. Let me just go up to the front of the actual session just to show you what's up here at the top. So up here at the very top is my reference tracks. And basically you see more than one reference. And when I say reference track, basically I brought in a commercial sounding record to reference in my actual session so that I can hear it against mine. Why is this important? Say for instance, you walk into a studio, maybe it's not even yours, and you have to mix. Well, when you walk into the room and you start to listen to your song that you got to mix, you are blind. You have no idea what that room is telling you. You have no idea how that room reacts. What I suggest is, and what you should do, in my opinion, is play a song that you've heard ad nauseum. I mean, 1,000 times. Commercial record, maybe even your own. Play that in the room, and you're going to find out because you know what that record sounds like in your car. You know what that record sounds like in your AirPods. So now when you play it in that studio environment or on your speakers, it's kind of like you're tuning your ears to say, oh wow, so that's how the kick hits on this song, on this Michael Jackson song that I've heard 1,000 times, that I know slaps in my car, or I know the bass feels like this. So this is how it feels in this environment. With that on top, now when you play it against your record in this room that you're mixing, you know exactly what you're missing, what you're lacking, what it needs. Oh, I don't have enough vocals. Oh, wow. You can literally have a guide track or this reference to help you make better decisions. How do you know you have too much high end? Well, play that other record against it. You go, oh, whoa, I'm way too bright because I know that record is super bright. This is very important when it comes to this. Jake also does this as well. We'll have multiple reference tracks. We talked about this too as well. So I have a number of reference tracks in here. I'll get to those. But the very last track I want to show you, and then we'll get into some mixing, is my stereo master track or fader or bus. And basically, what I want you to know about it is, plain and simple, all my signals are feeding this stereo master track that you see here. And when I mean all my signals, what I truly mean is, remember those subgroups I told you about? Bass, music, vocals, and drums? This is feeding, this output is feeding, those 4 subgroups are feeding that stereo master bus. Now, let's come outside of the DAW so that I can get you an idea of what equipment I'm using and what is happening. So keep those subgroups in mind, okay? Those subgroups I told you about, bass, drums, music, and vocals, right? Now what I'm doing is, I'm using something called a summing amp. Now, we can get into a bunch of different things, what a summing amp does and all that other stuff, but just know it's kind of like something like going in or out to an SSL console or a Neve console, where basically I'm taking those subgroups that I told you about and I'm bringing them out, and now I'm using a summing amp to give me that separation, that clarity, and that things of that nature. I love summing amps right now, especially because it allows me to kind of separate those signals And now I can identify those signals better. That's my opinion. I'm not saying that, that's exactly what it does. But for me personally, what my ears hear when it comes to summing is I hear space, a larger sound stage. I hear separation between those subgroups. I feel like as soon as I enter it into my summing amp, as far as the separation, it's like I hear, oh, there's the vocals clearly. Oh, there's the bass clearly. Oh, there's the music clearly. It helps me to gather that separation. Now, this is a very debated topic, but I just want to make it clear that you can use your own discretion with that. And my summing amp that I've chosen for this, and I'm going to show you, is the Dangerous 2-Bus Plus summing amp. Now, don't be afraid of what you're seeing here. I love this thing to death. This was a personal preference. There are a bunch of different summing amps out there. Remember, in the back of your mind, this is kind of like me going out to an SSL and just using that board to get some drive, to get some saturation, just to get some harmonics, separation, depth. I can use all the buzzwords all day. But just know this is where all those stems from the subgroup are coming out from, or coming out to. So I'm separating my drums, my vocals, my bass over here, and then I'm separating the music over here as well. So you're going to see 4 stems light up here. Okay, now after it's summed here, it comes out stereo, right? 2, it sums those together here, and it comes on over to this magical piece that I love to death called the Knee Portico Master Bus Processor. And basically, this is a master bus processor that has harmonic saturation. It has some stereo widening stuff over here, as well as some depth control. It has a compressor and a limiter built in. Now, honestly, I'll tell you the truth. When it comes to this Knee Portico Master Bus Processor, really what I'm going to use it for is its sound. The sonic characteristics that I just get from it, the saturation is insane. I'm going to use some of the harmonic saturation probably, maybe a little bit of the widening, maybe a little bit of the depth. But just know, I'm literally using this outboard gear to give me character. That's it. That's all I'm doing. Character, depth, clarity, all those fancy words that you've heard of. I'm just getting a little bit of that analog sound or circuitry, which I know we hate to say, into my actual mix. A little bit of chaos, as I like to say. The last part. Go ahead.
And don't be scared off by any of this hardware stuff. It's really fun to have, and it's really great gear. But there are plugins that do this stuff too. In fact, I've recently sold a lot of analog gear for plugins because the plugin was doing what I wanted better. So you don't have to have this stuff, but this is his workflow, and these are great pieces of gear. If you're into outboard gear, if you're into this stuff, the stuff he's showing you is like highly recommended.
You can replicate this in the box, guys. Like also, like you can replicate something similar to this in the box, and all of this is just kind of like we're talking about preference, engineer preference at this point, right?
Right.
So
it's fun to me. This is fun to me. Like this, having this stuff makes the process fun for me. So, but don't get it twisted. This stuff you can have this. You can do things like this in the box, hands down. They're absolutely right about that. Yeah. Okay. So, to continue, the very last piece of equipment, which I don't want you to be afraid about. Let's just look at my audio interface. This is very important. I need you to know these things before we start. The audio interface that I'm using is the Prism Sound Titan, which is my favorite interface. And long story short, all the Prism Sound Titan it's my A to D, meaning it's the signal that's coming from the Knee Portico bus right back into my DAW. It's beautiful. I love the sound of these converters that I have. They use it a lot in film. Thus what made me think to myself, oh, I want those converters because those converters sound massive to me. They have a certain stereo sound and things of that nature. Granted, you can do these things in your DAW, but to taste, it's my preference. Just letting you know my run as far as my equipment. And if you look at my outboard, literally I only have like about 2 pieces, to be honest. I'm not looking for much more, but these are the 2 pieces as far as my summing amp, going into my Knee Portico bus, going into my Prism Sound Titan interface. That's really my chain outside. So I just want you to be aware of what's going on in the moment when I'm pressing play on this mix, everything summed and coming right back into the DAW.
Yeah, cool. If you're going to use outboard gear, you definitely at some point want to think about having good converters, and those Prism converters are used by mastering engineers. They're mastering grade converters. They sound really great coming in. There are other options that are even I wouldn't say colored, but you have your burl stuff, different things that you can
Character.
find your way of doing it. But if you are going to run out to some outboard gear, you do want to make sure you have good cables. You want to make sure you have good converters going out and coming back in.
Oh yeah. As soon as I got this Prism Sound Titan and this knee portico and this summing amp, the first thing I did was I hurt the bank and I got some Mogami cables. Whew. You know it hurts. But
I got
yeah.
a place for you, Devon.
Oh, please. Oh, if you gotta put me on, man, like when you get a chance. Oh my gosh. Okay, cool. So, you know my chain. You see what I have going on. You have the lay of the land when it comes to my session and the whole nine. Now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna redeem ourselves from yesterday. Okay. So, I have Jake's sad mix, as he so eloquently labeled, in my session, and then I have the bear mix in my session as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play you Jake's sad mix, and then I'm going to play you my bare minimum session, meaning everything clean, taking off a bunch of the stuff he did, the client sent me, as far as that sad mix is concerned, from the muddiness in that kick, as far as there was a subharmonic generator on the kick and there was a stereo spatial thing on the vocals. Let's just think about it like this when you hear this. I took all that stuff off, all the junk. I took off the reverb. I took all of it. Listen to this difference between the rough mix that the client sent me and me just getting organized, me gain staging, which I'll come to, and me just getting rid of all those effects that I felt like were counterproductive to my clarity and things of that nature. The start. I didn't do anything else. I just took things off. Okay? All right. So, make sure I got this correct. This is my original ref. 1 second, let me make sure. Okay, so listen, clarity. This is the original mix that you've been hearing yesterday, the sad mix, quote unquote, that Jake, the client, I'll call Jake the client. I like calling Jake the client right now. That Jake the client sent me over. So check this out. Bad client.
You say no to this one.
Oh, yeah. I can tell the way that you walk and you mean business. Know it's gonna be harder than me just being consistent. Say this with respect, girl, I got you on my hit list. Not the type of girl that's worried about these other women. Top 5 dead alive. I'm talking pull up, baby, stay a while. But deep down, now let's listen to my mix with everything taken off and cleaned up. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I can tell the way that you walk and you mean business. Know it's gonna be harder than me just being consistent. Say this with respect, girl, I got you on my hit list. Not the type of girl that's worried about these other women. Top 5 dead alive. I'm talking pull up, baby, stay a while. But deep down, I just got a feeling that you might be too much for me. But either way, I'm gonna see you might be bad for me. So tell me if I'm wrong, or are you bad for me? Big difference. If you hear that difference, please drop a 1 in the chat one time. So, huge difference. I'm going to take a look at this, and periodically I do want to look at the chat, so I'm going to look at the chat right quick, just so I'm just keeping up with you guys in the whole nine. There is a massive difference. What do you hear as far as the difference between that original mix that the client sent and our organized session going through summing and coming into our DAW? Transients, depth, I'm reading it. Clean out all the effects.
It's not mixed yet. It's just arranged and kind of volume. A lot of the volume's done right at this point. Right. So this is no mixing. This is raw. This is super raw. No mixing. This is what the producer sent over and me just cleaning up the session. Which, look at the difference between like the moment between cleaning up a session, which I feel like a lot of people skip that step, and getting to that point. It already sounds a million times better with us just getting organized and getting things in place. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. We're so far from a final mix. But from a standpoint of going from A to B, we already know this client is probably going to be super happy already. But let's get it to the best place we possibly can get it. Cool. So detailed stuff
Is it only a volume mix? Yes, this is only a volume mix. I'm making sure I stay ahead of everybody. Not washed out reverb. Love that you noticed that. Right, the reverb. And one thing that I'll say about reverb, you got to be very careful with reverb because reverb is probably what destroys a lot of your fidelity in your mix. If you have too much reverb in a mix, your separation between instruments and sound sources, gone. So be very careful, and I'm going to teach you that too, as far as setting your reverb times, setting up and cleaning your reverbs in order so they don't interfere with the fidelity of the entire record. Too much reverb, keep this and write this down, too much reverb will wash out your sound, kill your transients, and destroy your separation. Straight up. Be careful with reverb, with big reverbs. Be very careful with them. Okay, cool.
Really
so let's
quick,
continue.
real quick. If you're hearing this in mono, or if it's not sounding right, look at the audio settings Jake just posted. He's going to spam it. You need to go in and make sure that original sound for musicians is on, high fidelity music mode is on, stereo audio is on. That's in your audio settings in Zoom. That'll help things sound a little bit better. It's not clipping. There is a distortion on the bass that sounds like clipping, just as it is right now. Yeah, it shouldn't be clipping other than that, though.
Yeah. It may come off as if you're doing it in mono and it's like you're doing like really crappy streaming audio, then yeah, you might interpret that as like, oh, it's just clipping because it doesn't know how to reproduce that well. So make sure, yes, stereo, high fidelity, make sure you're listening to it in the best possible way you possibly can. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
all right.
Christian,
So
about to get into that. So remember, his first thing next will be right. It's going to be the relationship between the kick, the snare, and the vocal.
Yeah, we're going to hit that right on the head. Okay, cool. So before I get to my reference tracks and things of that nature, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come on over to here and I'm going to take everything off my stereo bus. So there's nothing on my stereo bus right now. Okay, so I want you to keep that in mind. Right now, there's nothing but on my stereo bus processing wise. The only thing that's here is this Insight 2, which I use a lot of times. This is kind of my metering as far as everything is concerned. It has a bunch of different things. I just want to get you familiar with what my Insight 2 does. Gives me the sound field, gives me a bunch of different tools to kind of analyze my mix and things of that nature. Just so you just know what that actually is there on the end of it. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to solo the kick. And when I solo the kick, I want you to know what I'm actually trying to do right now because I'm about to start mixing. Let's assume that I've listened to the song, I've analyzed it, I've decided, okay, I think it needs more of this, more of that, this and that, and all the other stuff. First thing I'm going to start with, which is, like I said, always and never. You do not have to do it this way. How you're learning from the fundamental standpoint is not wrong. I'm just showing you what works for me and what has worked for me. Take from me what you want is what I say. If it doesn't work for you, cool. But this is just how I've been going about things. So first thing I'm going to do is I like to start with the processing of the kick. And the reason why I like to start with the processing of the kick is chances are when it comes to pretty much a lot of the styles of music that I'm dealing with, right, for the most part, hip hop, R&B, pop kind of stuff, that kick is so important. That low end is so important. My transients, for me, is everything. A lot of times when you guys use your limiters and you smash it, what you're destroying is one, dynamics, and two, most of all, is transients. That's what gives you the impression of lifelessness. It destroys a mix if you're trying to give something more life. So what I want some transients. I want my kicks to snap. I want my snares to crack. I want my vocals to feel strong. So those three elements, kick, snare, vocal, is pretty much the lifeblood of my mix. Why? Think about it like this. If I'm trying to organize something or organize a bunch of people, a lot of times what we do is we start with the middle. You guys stand right there. You stand right there. Then I take the other pieces and I build it around that centerpiece. That centerpiece is where the focus is. It's where the feeling is. It's where the drive of the entire record for me personally is when it comes to the specific genres that I'm dealing with. So I like to make sure that center is tight and nice, and everything, I'm telling y'all, everything else for me personally goes, it's so much easier to know where things belong around those three elements for me personally. So that's why I've been so stuck with and doing it a lot where I start with the kick, the snare, and the vocal. Because if I got that rhythm section going along with the vocal, everything else is just so much easier and I have a better understanding of everything. So let's start mixing. Okay. So I have my kick channel. And one thing I do want to note is that on the top of a lot of my faders, or most of them, you'll see an NLS channel. Now, the only thing the NLS channel is doing and what it basically does is it's kind of modeling an analog board. It's giving me the quote unquote analog saturation or the feeling of an analog board. Really, in the back of my mind, what I feel like is with each NLS channel that I put on each fader, it's kind of giving me a little bit of a difference. And that's what analog does. Analog gear does. It gives you differences as far as chaos and entropy between your sound sources. And this is another reason why people like the sound of SSLs and the sounds of summing amps, because, you know, fader one, and these things have a mind of their own. If you look at fader one on an SSL, that one might be beat to snot. The circuitry may have had a lot going through it. Even on your audio interfaces, on that preamp, fader track one, or input one, is going to have a certain sound to it because it's been ran through it. It's probably hot. It's probably warmed up. So what there's a difference when it comes to those tracks and faders, and I believe, and to my knowledge, the NLS channel is giving me a little bit of a difference between each sound source, which gives me that feel of difference and entropy, kind of like what analog gear and stuff like that does. So I have it across my entire chain on the spike setting. That's an SSL setting, and it kind of gives me a little bit of that drive that I like a lot. So just to let you know. All right. So I have the drive at about a 3. So let's listen to the kick right quick. Cool. So I have my kick around -13. This is kind of like a sweet spot for me, that -13, -10 spot as far as my kick. There's a real big reason why I do that. I'm trying to conserve my headroom because I think a lot of us, when we start mixing and keep going, if your kick or that transient thing or the loudest thing in your mix is at -1 hitting, then basically, you know, when you start increasing EQs and adding compression and boosting things, you're just going to be clipping and fighting constantly on your stereo master bus. So for me, I like to start with that kick around like a medium spot, kind of like -10, -13 maybe, just to kind of give me a little bit of headroom to make sure that I'm not going to overload it, because I'm going to gain some more volume as I continue mixing. It's just inevitable. So keep that in mind why I did that. Now, one other thing that Caleb also wanted me to mention, which Caleb, I do want to ask you, is it cool if I show them why they should be gain staging in their mixes and stuff like that?
Yeah,
Cool.
we
Let's do it.
usually go over that.
Okay, cool. So I love this. I love to show you guys. So let me show you a little reason why you should gain stage. And for those of you that are like, gain staging, what is he talking about? I'm about to get lost. No, you're not. I'm going to show you real quick and easy why it's important for you to gain stage. So right here, I have the same kick. Now, when I first got the session, what I did was I gained stage, meaning I click gained everything down in my session. Stay with me. Don't worry about it. I click gained everything down in my session. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the original kick, meaning the original kick that came to me from the client. Literally, this is the kick that the client sent me off rip, or not gain staged. Okay? I'm going to solo it. Take a listen. Watch your ears. This is a little louder. So you can basically see that this kick is hitting at 0, like it's hitting, right? Now, if you say to yourself, okay, cool, I'm gonna gain stage. I'm just gonna turn that kick down because it's too loud for me to put EQs and things of that nature. Okay, cool. Let's give that a try. Cool. So it's at -13, right? I've gained stage, right? Wrong. You haven't. You should be gain staging, or you should be turning down that particular signal before it hits that fader. Why is that important? Why should we be gain staging or click gaining before we do any processing? Let me show you why. right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up a Fab Filter EQ, common move that I'm sure a lot of you do. And what I want you to do is I want you to pay attention to this meter up here, the meter that's right up here. I'm going to put this back to 0, meaning I'm going to put that kick, original kick back to 0, and I want you to pay attention to the meter. Check this out. Cool, hitting that negative 0.3, right? The meters or the fader's at 0. We have it at the top of the thing. Now you say to yourself, okay, need to turn that down. So you go to the fader and you turn it down. Let's take a look at our meter. Now, we turned it down 11 dB, right, from the fader. Take a look at this plugin. So if you pay attention to what's happening, nothing moved. It's the same voltage hitting that plugin, right? This is why it's important to turn it down before it hits your actual fader and before it hits your plugin. So this is kind of why gain staging is so important, because guess what? If I boost this EQ right now, clip, I'm going to be clipping immediately, meaning I have no headroom, I have nowhere to move. I'm going to immediately just go in the red as soon as I do any kind of move whatsoever. Check this out. I just did 1.5 dB of a boost and I'm already clipping. It's already stored. And I can even hear some nuances as far as it kind of starting to crack a little bit. So how do you gain stage it? Or how do you make sure or fight this? How do you make sure this doesn't happen to you in the mix at all? So what I'm going to do is you can come over to the actual clip, and it can be different for your DAW, but you can look up the words clip gain, or you can put, for other people that don't have this, you can put a trim plugin at the very top of your insert and you could just bring that volume down. Ironically, if you're a Pro Tools user, what you can do is you can literally just come on over to here, right where it says the test kick, which is the original kick, and you can bring the volume of the clip down just like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the volume of the clip down negative 10, so to 10 dB. I'm going to bring it down 10 dB. And now take a look at my Fab Filter Pro Q3 meters. Beautiful headroom. Now I can boost this kick, and now you can even go on over to the actual fader and turn it up to your liking. You can get it back to that volume easily, but you just have to make sure that you're gain staging, because if you're not, you're going to be fighting your mix day in and day out. I hope that was helpful. Now we're going to start mixing, but I had to explain that because I feel like that's really huge for a lot of people as far as understanding why gain staging is important. I did this across the board. I did this to my snare. I did this to my kick. I did it to all the instruments that were too hot. And I knew, hey, as soon as I put a plugin on, it's a wrap. I'm not going to have any headroom and it's going to clip. Important.
You guys following? One in the chat. One in the chat if you're some light bulbs are going off. If you're following. Cool.
Yeah, that's an important, that should help a lot of people. Somebody put 1.5.
5. Nice.
Fire emoji in chat if you can already tell Devon's a great teacher and you can understand why we went to great lengths to make sure he became part of mastering.com.
I appreciate that.
Fire.
Dope.
Great teacher.
Dope. I appreciate the confidence boost. I'm not gonna lie, I really do. I'm hoping you guys are getting something from this, because this is how we are at mastering.com, dude. It's like, dude, we want to make sure you get it. Like, straight up. We just want to make sure you get it. Like, we want to make sure you understand. I don't want to show you a tip and trick and that's it, and you go and use it. No, I want to show you the fundamentals. I want you to understand everything that's going on. So
yeah, we just global warming with all those fire emojis.
Global warming. I'm dead. Okay, cool. So let's keep this going. So first thing I'm going to do is attack the kick. So with the kick, I'm going to do some moves. I'm going to play around. And basically what I'm trying to accomplish with the kick is I want some more transient information. I want it to feel a little like it hits a little bit more. And I want to just feel a bigger kick. Like I want this kick to be bigger. How do I know that? Now I'm going to go over to my reference track. Let me listen to a reference track to feel what the kick feels like in my reference track right quick. So what I'm going to do is I have more than one reference track. I'm going to check this one out first. Let me listen. Make me wanna hold you a little tighter, and every time I pull you closer,
remind you that even on your worst days, I know you deserve it, so don't you ever.
Now I'm gonna listen to mine.
Tell the way that you walk and you mean business. Know it's gonna be harder than me just being consistent. Say this with respect, girl, I got you on my hit list.
1 second, cool. I'm going back to the other one. 1 second. I'm just tuning my ears right quick.
Make me wanna hold you a little tighter, and every time I pull you closer, it's only to remind you that even on your worst day.
1 second, just matching the volumes of those reference tracks so I don't cheat myself and I don't ruin my actual perception. 1 second.
Make me wanna hold you a little tighter, and every time I pull you closer, it's only to remind you that even on your worst day. I can tell the way that you walk and you mean business. Make me wanna hold you a little tighter, and every time I pull you closer, it's only to remind you that even on your worst day.
Cool. My ears are now tuned. And I know you all are listening to that and you can hear things that you're like, oh, it needs more of this. This needs less of that. This needs that. I'm going to be going back and forth to that reference like crazy until I feel like, oh, I'm good. I'm done. I got my own thing going. So there's a bunch of things that I hear in the kick. I kind of want the kick to be a lot tighter and meatier, if that makes any sense. But I also want to make sure that I'm retaining the transient information that I want and want to keep out of that kick. His cracks, as far as that Kenyon Dixon song, but I just want to make sure that mine retains that while adding some meat to it too. Remember, I'm trying to make it better than any of the other records, right? At the same time. All right, let's do it. I'm taking my limiter off of my stereo master bus. I want to make that very clear. And I'm mixing with nothing on my master bus yet. All right. Okay, if you listen closely, the difference that you're hearing between those two is I made this kick a little bit more exciting and a little bit more punchy and gave it more of a transient as opposed to the original. I'm going to play it again. I'm going to A-B it back and forth. What you'll notice in the bypass is that the bypass now feels a little softer as far as the kick is concerned. The kick feels a little softer in comparison to the Engage one, which has a little bit more of a kick to it and a little bit more of a crack to it. Listen closely without first. If you're using studio monitors and things like that nature, it's really easy to tell what just happened. Now, the next thing I want to do with that is when you add a bit of compression to pretty much anything low end wise, you're going to lose a little bit of low end. This is something I think a lot of people don't talk about, but a lot of times when you use compression, you can lose a little bit of low end. Think about it like this. Why do you think on some mastering compressors or just certain compressors, you see a side chain that says, hey, ignore 125 hertz and below? There's a lot of reasons why that is there, but I just want to start getting your mind going where you're like, oh, okay, I kind of see where you may want to ignore low end or when it comes to compression and things of that nature. I didn't want to ignore the low end, but what I'm going to do is, since I lost a little and gained something, I'm going to bring that right back in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up a plugin and I'm just going to bring back kind of what I lost in the kick. And that's going to be this right here. I love this plugin to death. I just want to let you know when it comes to kicks, anything EQing wise with bass and things, This plugin is elite. I love a Tech, or obviously it's modeled off of Pultec. What I'm going to do is I'm going to boost a little bit of the 30 hertz range to give me that meat back. Not much, just a little bit of that meat back into my kick. Cool. So I added a little bit of 30 just to give me that, what I lost in the compression when I got that transient back into the kick. Now I'm going to A-B this back and forth and kind of gain stage. What you're noticing is that I compensate for that volume loss or volume gain. If I feel like, okay, I don't want my ears to trick me, because if it sounds louder, it's, quote unquote, a lot of people think, oh, it sounds better. That's not the case. Be very careful. When you are adding compression or any EQs, level match. Very, very huge. Write that down. Level match to see where you're truly at and if you actually did make a better choice or a bigger difference. And that's what I'm about to do right now. So let's take this compressor and EQ that I added out right now and bypass it back and forth. Huge difference. If you have speakers or anything like that and you're listening, there's a big difference between what you heard before and what it is now. That's a huge difference in the body and the transient of that kick. It sounds heavier. Now, granted, I'm going to bring it down just a little bit more, because what I did do is I did eat up about 2 dB of headroom. Granted, that change right there sounds like more, but it was only 2 dB that I really boosted as far as that difference. So I'm going to bring my level down a little bit more as far as the gain staging, so that I'm not lying to myself at all. Okay, so just keeping that in mind. So I'm going to go to the Pultec. I'm going to bring it down just a wee bit so that I compensate for that 2 dB boost that I'm seeing on my meters right now. Cool. So I know I'm not lying to myself. That's probably about 0.5 dB of a boost, but it feels like more, and the kick already sounds tighter and a little bit stronger. Let's keep this going. So something my ears are noticing right now is that there's a little bit of air on this kick, on the top end. Drop a 1 in the chat if you notice that the kick has a little bit like of an air kind of sound on the actual kick and stuff like that. I'm sure there's ones all around. Now, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take some of that air out, and I'm gonna do something a little tricky. I know your first instinct is probably, okay, well, put a high cut, roll it off. Personally, with me, I've been kind of pushing back on my high cut filters and going more to shelving. I kind of like the sound of shelving a bit more, and I feel like it's less destructive when it comes to certain things. There's nothing wrong with high cuts and low cuts. I just like to use the shelf from time to time because I like the way it sounds. And I'm going to use a shelving EQ for this. Still eliminating some of that high noise that I'm hearing that I know is just adding more energy to my mix than I need. This is a game of inches. Everything that you can take away or kind of make space for, or take out all the unnecessary junk, you may be gaining 0.3 dB there, 5 dB, 0.5 dB there. This is a game of inches. Anything I can make room for and kind of make the right space for, you're going to keep winning. All these little things are going to add up to the big picture, okay? So I have a shelving EQ set, and I'm going to take out some of that high-end noise that I hear up top on the kick. Cool. So it's not completely gone, but it is mitigated, or there's less of it, which is going to help me down the line. So I got rid of a little bit of that stuff at the top right quick. Now, I'm still on the kick because the kick is so important to me. And watch, everything else is going to move super fast once I get to that kick snare and everything like that. Okay, so I like the sound of the kick so far, and I'm cool. What I'm about to do is, what I told you guys earlier, is something unorthodox. And I'm about to step into another place, okay? What I'm about to show you is an advanced trick, maybe to some, maybe to not to others. What I'm about to do is something called the Bob Power effect. And what I'm going to do is, I'm going to create a parallel of this kick. For those of you who don't know what the parallel means is, I'm going to take a copy of this kick. Keep that in the back of your mind. I'm going to take a copy of that kick, and what I'm going to do is, I'm going to bring that on top of our original kick with some processing. I'm going to walk you through it as I do it, but just know that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a copy of this kick and do some parallel processing, okay? All right. If you a little confused, don't worry. I'm going to walk you through it. Just stick with me and just pay attention. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this track. This track is obviously my kick. So I just duplicated the kick. So let's look on the other side. Let's look at our mix window. Our edit window. And you can see right here. It's the same thing. It's the same exact thing. I duplicated. It's the same exact waveform track and the whole nine. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take off all this stuff that was there from the previous stuff. Only thing I'll leave is my NLS channel. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to smash this kick into next week. I'm going to literally smash it. I'm going to destroy this kick right now with some compression. So I'm going to load up my DBX 160. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to smash this kick, and I'm looking for a lot of gain reduction. I'm talking about smashing it. Yes, this is very unorthodox. Pay attention and understand. Always and never in the garbage. Check this out. So let's smash this kick into next week right now. Sounds awful, right? Cool. Stay right there. Next thing we're going to do is I'm going to add an EQ. So remember, parallel kick, whole other copy, smashed it to death first. Now I'm going to do some EQing. Stay with me. It's all going to make sense. Now, what I'm going to do with this EQ is I'm going to boost a ton, an unorthodox ton, into 60 hertz, and I'm going to roll off the top end. All I want from this kick is the thud, is the boom, boom, boom. I'm going to take that and blend it in with the original. Watch me process it with this EQ first. I'm going to boost a crap ton, an unorthodox ton. Remember, think about your fundamentals and all you learn. It's okay. I'm going to boost a crap of the 60 hertz into this parallel kick right now. Watch this. Before and after, listen closely. Cool. So I've literally smashed this kick into the oblivion. All that's there is that 60 hertz thud that's really there. I'm going to now take this and blend it in with the original kick. Watch me raise this fader slowly. Cool. Now what I want to do is I want to check my volume on my stereo master bus to make sure that I didn't just chew up a bunch of headroom. I want to make sure that this is felt and heard, but I'm also, once again, safety nets, I'm looking at that meter to see how much headroom did I just eat up when I just added all that boom and knock. I don't want to add so much or eat up so much of my headroom. So let me just check my meter, and I'm going to look at my stereo master bus and kind of get an idea of how much I ate up, okay? And then I'm going to try to back off according to that, depending on how much I ate up. Now without. So the peaks were at negative 9.3 with it. Let's see what the peaks are without it. The fact that that's only 2 dB of a difference is beautiful. I'm already in a great place. Think about that. The fact that that difference between those two was only 2 dB, that saturation, that crunch, that punch, without eating up so much headroom. Now I have so much more weight to my entire thing. And I'm going to play the original kick for you. Don't get it twisted. Watch this. So now let me just back it off a little bit just to maybe just eat up just maybe 1 dB of headroom. And then I'll bypass it back and forth. And let's see what that Bob Powers effect did. So back off just a bit. Better, more weight to it, and that literally only gave me, that was about 1 dB. Think about it. We literally, all those moves may have accounted for maybe 2 dB. But the difference between those, when I play, if you play the original kick against it now, with that all that extra added weight and tightness and transient, is night and day. It feels so much better. Okay. So now that I have my kick in place, as far as that's concerned, I'm cool with my kick. I'm not doing any more to the kick right now. I'm gonna move on.
You guys follow that? You guys follow that? Okay. One in the chat if you're following that. If that's turning on the lights for you. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
Sick.
Thank you. Because you know how it is. You get in the zone. I get in the zone. I'm like, go.
I know, go. Dude. I know.
Yes, France.
Yeah. It looks like you got some really nice love here in the chat.
Good. Cool. No question. I see somebody said no question. So much more weight to the kick. Best kick parallel tut ever. I love it.
Somebody call it, what's that? The Bob Barker effect again?
Yeah, I seen Bob Barker. I was like, no.
Might as well be.
Right? Bob Barker. Okay, cool. Let's keep this going. Somebody asked about max bass. I have something for you later, because if you use max bass, I believe max bass is adding saturation. So now you're playing a little bit of a different game, but I'm going to show you something.
Sorry. That bass trick does some girth, but also teaches people to spay and neuter their cats and dogs.
Neuter your cat. Oh my gosh, I'm dead. Look, they laughing at that.
Yeah, I like that one.
It's too good of a Bob Barker joke to move on from.
Got you. I appreciate the segue, Caleb. Thank you very much. I actually forgot that this is live. Somebody said I forgot this is live.
Well done.
Yeah, no doubt. So that's what that is. So I'm going to show you a trick way better than max bass. That'll blow your mind. Don't worry. I'm going to show you something that works way better than max bass. Okay. So I got my kick into a place where I feel like I got some weight and stuff like that on it. Next time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the snare. So let's take a listen to the snare so far, or what it sounds like. Cool, so I listened to the snare. What I'm gonna do right quick is I'm gonna go back to the original mix just to see where the client liked his or her snare. This is important. I'm gonna listen to the client's mix and say, okay, this is their rough mix that obviously they love, whether it's garbage or not, but I wanna see their relationships, as we discussed and Caleb showed you in the slide, is I wanna make sure that I'm maintaining those relationships and understanding the relationship that the client also wants, on top of making the relationship better. So I just want to see where the client had it, okay? So let's look at where this amazing client, Jake, had it. Cool. Got my ear tuned to it, listening back. And to make this clear, you know, this kick snare relationship is very important. And one of my rule of thumbs is, as soon as I start feeling like I'm grooving, I feel like, hey, I'm in a place. Now this takes time to train your ears in that sense, where you're like, well, how do you know where the kick and the snare belong in the mix? Feel it out, 1. 2, use your reference tracks. So now I'm about to go to my reference track and see how they have their snare kind of going in the mix.
Probably, if I had to guess, probably panned all the way to the left.
Yeah. Which I would call the client and say, hey man, I don't know about this one. Let me try something different for you.
Mono.
Mono. Okay. So let's listen to one of our references. I'm gonna play the reference again. 1 sec. Let's turn it way down because we don't have a limiter on ours right now. So I want to level match and make sure my ears don't play no tricks on me.
Make me wanna hold you a little tighter, and every time I pull you closer, it's only to remind you that even on your worst days, I know you deserve it. So don't you ever try to be perfect. That'll never work, babe.
Cool, I like where I'm at. I'm not mad at where I'm at as far as where my snare is placed. So I like my placement of my snare thus far. Let's keep it going. So now what am I going to do to my snare? How do I like to process my snare? Well, there's a ton of different ways I like to do it. I do have some stereo widening tricks that sometimes I do, but be very careful when you play with stereo widening or anything like that with snares. In this case, I would probably send the client a separate mix with a different style of a snare where it's widened. But for now, I'm going to keep this thing centered right where it is, where the client sit me, and I'm just going to enhance that snare a little bit. So remember, transients. That's what I'm doing with this kick in the snare. Transients is my goal. That's really what I want out of this, is straight transients or just more transient information. So my favorite plugin, which a lot of people, I feel like, laugh at me about or don't know about much, I use this for snares. I love this to death for snares. It kind of reminds me, if you're a gearhead, of a distressor. It kind of has that crack to it and that crushness to it that I like. So I like to use Axe. Let's let you see what it does.
That was originally designed for guitar, like high gain guitars, right?
I don't know what it originally was for. I never knew what it was actually for.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I'm gonna check.
For guitars?
Yeah, I'm gonna check.
Let me know that, because I wound up falling in love with it and using it for snares. I love it for snares.
Which would make sense, right? It would make sense, like if it's got like that cut and like that edge to it that you like.
Right. It kind of helped. I like what it does to my transient. Like, I love what it does to the transient. So it's a form of compression that is doing to my transient too, which is awesome. So it's like this super, I'm going to keep your transient style compressor. If that makes any sense. So, okay, let's take a listen to what it's going to do. So I'm going to process this snare. I know you guys feel that. With and without, I'm going to bypass it back and forth. Look what it was before. That's a massive difference as far as that snare kind of, you didn't even think it could do that, like where it feels more upfront and kind of more in your face. Now granted, I'm going to make sure I level match, right? I'm going to look at my meters as far as my stereo master bus, and I'm going to pay attention to, did I eat up way too much headroom and back off. Granted, you could clearly see that I turned it down about 4 dB as is, as I was compressing and bringing down the threshold. So I already kind of started mitigating for the volume, but I want to make sure I do it even more and make sure that I'm not tricking myself too much. So I'm going to bring it down and try a level match. I'm going to pay attention to my meters. I'm going to take the kick out right quick and just pay attention to what it sounds like. Cool. So about a 2.5 dB difference. I'm gonna just take it back down about 0.5 dB. I don't mind, or I'll take it down a dB and a half. And let me listen to my difference with my snare now. Before. And if you think that you could just turn your snare up a dB and get that, achieve that much volume or that much punch and crack out of it,
Nope.
you're
Yeah.
sadly mistaken.
Yeah. Yep.
By the way, Devon,
Yep.
they're wanting you to move your plug-in so they can see the level meter.
The post fader.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, so sorry. Gotcha. Okay, cool. So I did that. I'm not doing any more to that at this moment. What I am going to do is I'm going to now move on over to this snare parallel chain that you see, and I'm just going to add a little bit of parallel compression to my actual snare. I'm just going to add a little bit of a crack underneath it and just let it rock. So kind of what you saw, not like the Bob Powers effect that you saw me do with the kick, but I'm just going to add a little bit more crack on the snare with parallel compression. I'm going to smash a copy of that and blend it into taste. That's all I'm going to do. No EQ to mess with my phase or anything. Just adding a compressor to a copy. Okay, so here's my parallel. I do it through a send, which is snare parallel. It's very important to be extremely organized. I'm going to put this here. I'm going to put this pre-fader. All this means, and don't lose your mind on this, when you're sending auxes or sends out to your reverb, to your parallel chain, or to anything, just know there is pre-fader and there's post-fader. If you send it pre-fader, basically you're telling the aux in, hey, send out the copy before it hits any of my plugins. If you say post-fader, you're saying, hey, send out a copy after all the plugins processing is there. That's it. Why is this powerful? If you set it to pre, right, I'm getting the original sound of the snare pushed out. But if I happen to change the volume on my actual snare right here, meter, it won't affect the parallel processing or the volume going to that parallel processor. You'll see in a second. Some people may have caught that. You don't have to hold on to that, but I just wanted to give you every piece of nuance of why and what that I'm doing as far as everything is concerned. So I'm sending it out pre-fader. So if I move the snare and I happen to turn it up later in the mix, it doesn't affect the parallel processing at all. Okay, so let's listen to this. And let's get this snare to crack. I'm going to smash this kick snare into next week. I'm going to use all. Let's listen. You hear that? You hear that crack? It's cracking, right? Cool. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that and bring it right underneath the original snare to give me a little bit more of that hole that's missing. And let's do it with our kick as well. Love that. It's adding and it's reinforcing that waveform and just making that snare hit a little harder. Now,
Hitting me right here, right in the jaw, like right below my ear. That's where it hits me.
Right. It's like, yeah, you're holding on to it, right? Like it holds you. It's like, it's hitting in a consistent, transients. They're exciting. They make things sound exciting. That's why I'm working so hard to get those transients to sound nice and strong and full. Okay. So I'm gonna listen to my what is it called? My reference right quick, just to see where I'm at in the grand scheme of everything. So let's say spike. Cool. So take this off. Let's listen to our reference right quick.
Make me wanna hold you a little tighter, and every time I pull you closer. hold you a little tighter, and every time I pull you.
I'm cool. I'm liking where I'm at as far as my snare, my kick. Granted, so much more heavy lifting to do. But as far as that bass line, as far as like kick and snare, mine has those transients. His has those transients, but mine also has those transients. Different sonic characteristics, and I'm not trying to match exactly what his sounds like, but what I'm trying to do is just get into a place where I'm like, that those dynamics and those transients kind of has that same and gives me that same feeling. I'm also going to make this kick brighter. I'm going to let you know. We're going to do that later. That's a whole nother day. But let's keep this going. So now, let's move on over to the vocal. So those are solo. Let's take this. And now let's move on over to the vocal. And here's our lead vocal. And the only thing on our lead vocal is this EQ and an NLS channel. And basically, like I told you, this NLS channel just emulating an SSL board. It's doing something so subtle, but it's just giving me just a little bit at the very start. It just, as soon as I import your stems into my session, I automatically just get a sound, or I get something that feels a little bit more fluff and a lot more beefier. So, NLS channels there, and there's an EQ here with just a high shelf. That's basically just boosting some high end. Nothing. It was pre-compressed coming in like it typically would be from a mic source, and that's it. So there's just a little bit of compression that was already printed, meaning coming from analog gear, and that's it. So let's just take a listen to the vocal for what it is. Let's take this off. Let's listen to the vocal.
I can tell the way that you walking, you mean business. Know it's gonna be harder than me just being consistent. Say this with respect, girl, I got you on my hit list. You not the type of girl that's worried about these other women. You top 5 dead alive. I'm talking pull up, baby, stay a while.
Cool sound, nothing crazy. Obviously I hear things, I hear sibilants. I hear that there's some dynamics that I would like to improve upon. But I don't know anything until I hear it against something, right? I'm kind of listening to it blind. But being the ear that I do have and time that I've spent, I can hear already, okay, I can already see where I'm probably going to have to address this. So now let's listen to it in reference, or the relationship. Here's where we're starting to do our relationships and starting to invest into our relationships. Keep that in your mind. It's time to start investing into our relationship. We're about to invest into the relationship of kick, snare, vocal. Okay? So, here's my kick, snare, vocal so far.
I can tell the way that you walking, you mean business. Know it's gonna be harder than me just being consistent. Say this with respect, girl, I got you on my hit list. You not the type of girl that's worried about these other women. You top 5 dead alive. I'm talking pull up, baby, stay a while. But deep down I just got a feeling that you might be too much for me. But either way I wanna say you might be bad for me. So tell me if I'm wrong, are you bad for me?
Cool. So, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this off as far as what the client did. I'm going to boost some high end later, of course, but I'm going to take this off what the client gave me. See it like this. Sometimes it's okay to take something off that a client gave you, especially when it's something easy like a air, just adding a bit of a high shelf to it. So in the back of my mind, I'm like, I'll get that, but I just want a clean slate to work in when I'm working with this vocal. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do with this vocal, and it's really a lot of trial and error with me personally with vocals, so be patient with me when it comes to this because this is so important. You understand what I'm saying? And I really want to take my time and utilize it correctly and let you see. I'll give you insight in my process, but give me time to get it right. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to do things that you're going to be like, no, and I'm going to do things that you might go, ooh. So just let me get to it. So where's my head at right now, right? As far as hearing this. What I'm hearing off rip is I'm hearing certain frequencies that I kind of want to push back on. Obviously, some of that sibilance. There's some in that mid-range where I kind of want to get rid of as far as harshness is concerned. And I want to get rid of some of that muddiness. Only reason is because I know my ears already and I can already tell that there's certain things down low that I'm like, we need to get rid of a little bit of you before we go forward because I had that kick kind of letting me know, hey, I'm going to clash with this. I don't need this here. Clear space for me. Make room in my house. He doesn't need to be here. That vocal doesn't need to be so much of that down here. Okay. So my biggest thing is fix problems first. That's always my rule of, well, sorry, not never use always and never, but a lot of times my rule of thumb is I like to fix problems first. That's what I'm going for. When I hear something, I'm fixing problems. Maybe there are no problems, so I just go to, processing a different way. But right now I hear problems and I want to attack them. So I'm going to fix some problems that I'm hearing. So what I'm going to open up is I'm going to open up an EQ, right? And I'm going to take a listen to this right quick, and I'm going to analyze this.
I can tell the way that you walk and you mean business. Know it's gonna be harder than me just being consistent. Say this with respect, girl, I got you on my hit list. You're not the type of girl that's worried about these other women. You top 5 dead alive. I'm talking pull up, baby, stay a while. But deep down I just got a feeling that you might be too much for me. But either way I wanna say you might be bad for me. So tell me if I'm right.
Doesn't that frequency hurt? I hate this frequency. I'm not going to lie. This frequency right here, when it comes to vocals, I'm not going to lie to you. I punch this frequency in the face, and you're going to see me punch it in the face right now. When it comes to that 3K, 3.5K kind of frequency, I tend to mitigate this immediately. Let me tell you why. And this is an unorthodox, this is me coloring outside the line right now. I want you to know when I'm driving outside of the line. A lot of times in my type of music, R&B, pop, hip hop and stuff like that, we tend to mix it or make it loud, right? Very, very loud. What's going to happen when you make it loud and that frequency range of 3.5K or that 3K upper mid kind of frequency is ringing supreme up there, it's going to hurt your listeners' ears. It's going to rip their ears apart. So for me, I kind of know in the back of my mind how I'm going to be approaching this and how I'm going to probably doing some processing on that vocal that's going to accentuate those things. So I kind of want to back off on those just a bit so that when I add compression or when I add other things, which Caleb said to you, when you kind of add saturation or new energy into a sound source, it'll bring up the bad stuff more as well as the good stuff. So why I like to fix problems first is because I'm trying to accomplish a sound where it's less problems or problem free. Thus, when I'm boosting, I'm only boosting what? The good. So that's what I'm doing right now, just mitigating that. That frequency hurts my ear. I can hear it, and I'm just backing off. I'm going to rip some of that frequency out right now. Just letting you know what I'm doing right now.
I've got a very special plugin I like to use for this kind of work, by the way.
If you, let me see what you said. What you about to say?
Everyone in chat knows. Yeah,
Everybody knows. Everybody knows.
Well, let me look at chat. What you use? Oh, soothe. Soothe it out, dude. Yeah. Soothe it out. Which I'm going to get to. I'm going to get there. Everybody's like, soothe. Y'all are funny. I like that.
Little caveat though. There are sometimes vocals need that 3K too. There are some lifeless vocals, and that's where a lot of life sits. So this doesn't mean go cut 3K on all your vocals. It means
just to be clear. Yeah.
Right. And that's why I said always and never. Throw it in. Don't think anything I'm saying is never, like always and never. I can hear, I just know this microphone. I know that sound. I just know it coming off of my speakers when I'm listening. I'm like, yep, there goes that heavy 3K kind of frequency that I kind of want to get rid of before I start compressing and stuff like that. So in my situation for this vocal, I can hear it. I just know in the back of my mind, ooh, there's a lot of 3K. And you can see me when I sweeped, I felt it like immediately. I was like right there.
It's going to come down to the kind of compressor you decide to use too, right? Because different compressors have different characteristics. And if you choose a compressor that inherently kind of dulls that area, you might not necessarily need to cut it, right? Or vice versa. If you had a compressor that actually kind of like cuts a little bit, right? You might have to attenuate that frequency range a little bit steeper. So it's all kind of like connected and it's all interdependent. So exactly what Devon is saying, always and never, toss it out the window.
Toss it out the window. Because you could, right now, you could put on a compressor and find out, oh, this compressor kind of tames that. I like that compressor, and find out, oh, that's your go-to tool now, you know? So experiment, like, when it comes to that. But definitely, like, he's super right on that. Okay. All right. So let's listen to this, and now I'm going to take out some of this frequency range right here that I found.
I can tell the way that you walk and you mean business. Know it's gonna be harder than me just being consistent. Say this with respect, girl, I got you on my hit list. You're not the type of girl that's worried about these other women. You top 5 dead alive. I'm talking pull up, baby, stay a while. But deep down, I just got a feeling that you might be too much for me. But either way, I wanna say you might be bad for me. So tell me if I'm wrong. Are you bad for me?
What you'll notice is the vocal feels a little bit smoother now with me taking out some of the lows and kind of taking out that 3K. It kind of feels a little easier on my ear and it feels a little bit more pleasing. It softened it just a bit, but obviously we're going to bring some of that stuff in and stuff like that. But it just makes it feel a little bit more pleasing to my ear for now. Now, granted, I could have showed you a dynamic EQ trick, but I don't want to do that right now. I just want to kind of show you in a simple form. I probably would run to my dynamic EQ, but I do not want to get into that right now because maybe we'll do that towards the end where I'm like, okay, dynamic EQ will work better. Don't worry about it. We'll talk about that another day or another time. Okay, let's keep this going.
I can tell the way that you walk and you mean business. Know it's gonna be harder than me just being consistent. Say this with respect, girl, I got you on my hit list. You're not the type of girl that's worried about these other women. You top 5 dead alive. I'm talking pull up, baby, stay a while. But deep down, I just got a feeling that you might.
So what I was looking for the sibilants. I do have another way to attack sibilants, which I'm going to draw in, but that would take us forever. So for the sake of this, basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some dynamic EQ here now to kind of attack and mitigate that S's and T's and that sibilance that I'm hearing on that vocal. Because what I don't want is to go to a compressor and bring that out even more. So I'm just going to attack some of that sibilance and get rid of a little bit of that sibilance right quick.
I can tell the way that you walk and you mean business. Know it's gonna be harder than me just being consistent. Say this with respect, girl, I got you on my hit list. You're not the type of girl that's worried about these other women. You top 5 dead alive. I'm talking pull up, baby, stay a while. But deep down, I just got a feeling that you might be too much for me. But either way, I wanna say you might be bad for me. So tell me if I'm wrong.
And I'm be honest, I know you hear it too. I like the sound of the dynamic EQ, which now, screw it. I'm going to do dynamic EQ on my 3K range too because I like that. Look, he's like, yay. It's keeping, what the dynamic EQ doing is it's working like a multi-band compressor or a compressor where I'm saying, for people that don't know, basically I'm honing in on a frequency range and I'm saying, hey, compress just this frequency range right here. So I'm going to do that for the 3K range too, because there's some parts where that 3K could be very pleasing or it could help the vocal kind of stand up a little bit more in the mix. So I'm going to get rid of it only when it passes a certain threshold or it feels like it's too much. So we're going to do the same thing because I really like the sound of how it got rid of those S's and T's and kind of smoothed it out. I know you did too. I know you heard that. So let's do it with the 3K range as well. And see, this is how you do it. You be honest with yourself and you go, oh, no, I'm doing it. Like it sounds better. And I do it. So just being honest with yourself, and this is live and in the moment. Let's do that.
I can tell the way that you walk and you mean business. Know it's gonna be harder than me just being consistent. Say this with respect, girl, I got you on my hit list. You're not the type of girl that's worried about these other women. You top 5 dead alive. I'm talking pull up, baby, stay a while. But deep down, I just got a feeling that you might be too much for me. But either way, I wanna say you might be bad for me.
Especially on that belt. Oh, it held it. It just made it say, don't be harsh. Like it just brought it down, especially on the belt parts and stuff like that. Let's continue.
I can tell the way that you walk and you mean business. Know it's gonna be harder than me just being consistent. Say this with respect.
Do you hear that difference? Bypass back and forth already? Listen again. Without.
I can tell the way that you walk and you mean business. Know it's gonna be harder than me just being consistent. Say this with respect, girl, I got you on my hit list. You're not the type of girl that's worried about.
Also understand, I can now turn the entire vocal up a little bit more because I just took some stuff out. So if you're thinking to yourself, oh, it got quieter, yeah. Now I can actually boost it more and more of the good stuff is going to be boosted in this entire thing. But I'm not going to boost yet. I'm just subtracting, but just know in the back of your mind that I could boost this and get more volume out of this if I wanted to, now that I've done some subtractive EQ. It's beautiful. Or dynamic subtractive EQing. Let's keep this going.
I can tell the way that you walk and you mean business. Know it's gonna be harder than me just being consistent.
Okay, right now I do want to hear this soloed. And that's a rare occasion that I want to hear something soloed. I like to hear things always with relationships, but right now I really just want to focus in on some mud that I'm hearing, and I kind of want to mitigate some of the mud that I'm hearing in the vocal. I just want to make it a little bit cleaner. Sometimes you don't need to add brightness. Sometimes you can just get rid of some lows, and it'll give you the perception of brightness. So before I like to, sometimes when it comes to adding brightness, I'll do subtractive EQing as opposed to additive. It's just can be better, and you're saving headroom while doing this. So keep that in the back of mind. If you think brightness, you don't have to always just boost. You can subtract to get brightness as well. Perception. You're playing a game here at 24/7.
I can tell the way that you walk and you mean business. No, it's gonna. Now I just gotta.
Give me some time. I'm analyzing. I have to take my time with this.
I can tell the way that you business. No, it's gonna be harder than me. Type of girl that's worried about these other women. You top 5 dead alive. I'm talking pull up, baby, stay a while. But deep down, I just got a feeling that you might be too much for me. But either way, I'm gonna say you might be bad for me. So tell me if I'm wrong. Are you bad for me? Don't drag me along. Are you bad for me? I can tell the way that you walk and you mean business. No, it's gonna be harder than me just being consistent. Say this with respect. Girl, I got you on my hit list. You're not the type of girl that's worried about these other women.
Listen to that difference. Before.
I can tell the way that you walk and you mean business. No, it's gonna be harder than me just being consistent. Say this with respect. Girl, I got you on my hit list. You're not the type of girl that's worried about these other women. You top 5 dead alive. I'm talking pull up, baby, stay a while. But deep down, I just got a feeling that you might be too much for me. But either way.
Oh, yeah. Hold on. Don't give him all that yet. Hold on. One sec. Okay, cool. We're going back to our vocal. Let's keep this going. One sec.
I can tell the way that you walk and you mean business. No, it's gonna be harder than me just being consistent. Say this with respect. Girl, I got you on my hit list.
Doesn't that feel like the vocal now is living in its own spot where it's away from the kick? It's just like the kick and snare feel like it's in its own spectrum, and then the vocal feels like, hey, I'm over here, and we didn't do any compression or nothing yet, but it already feels like, hey, I'm sitting a little better in the frequency spectrum because we got rid of some of that mud, got rid of some of those frequencies, and now it's kind of sitting in a better spot so far. Let's keep this going.
I can tell the way that you walk and you mean business. No, it's gonna be harder than me just being consistent. Say this with respect. Girl, I got you on my hit list. You're not the type of girl that's worried about these other women.
Sorry, now my brain is going, and now I'm going to use some things. 1 second. It just takes a while. Sometimes I have to process things. I'm sorry about that. Like mentally, like I just have to kind of think what I want to do. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use an MB, and I'm going to try to mitigate some of that high end just a little bit more. I'm cool with it so far. I kind of just want to use a de-esser, which I'm just going to do that because it's just a little easier for my brain to kind of work with right now, which is, I love this de-esser so much. I have a little setting popping, which I like to use the default setting. Split. 1 second.
I can tell the way that you walk and you mean business. No, it's gonna be harder than me just being consistent. Say this with respect. Girl, I got you on my hit list. You're not the type of girl that's worried about these other women. You top 5 dead alive. I'm talking pull up, baby, stay a while. But deep down, I just got a feeling that you might be too much for me. But either way, I wanna say you might be bad for me. So tell me if I'm wrong. Are you bad for me? Don't drag me along. Are you bad for me? I can tell the way that you walk and you mean business. No, it's gonna be harder than me just being consistent. Say this with respect. Girl, I got you on my hit list. You're not the type of girl that's worried about these other women. You top 5 dead alive. I'm talking pull up, baby, stay a while. But deep down, I just got a feeling that you might. If I'm wrong, are you bad for me?
You're
Oh,
muted.
you're muted.
Sorry. I got you. Now in the back of my mind, I got rid of some of those S's and T's. I kind of mitigated, kind of did a little bit of a cleanup. Nothing crazy, to some people, but I did a little bit of stuff, and it's added to the overall sound of what I have so far. Now, what I'm gonna do next is a trick that I've been doing as of recently when it comes to vocals, and I'm gonna crack this plugin open. And this plugin is called Vocal Writer, and this is one of my cleanup plugins. And let me tell you why I use this plugin. I'm still in fix problems mode. Remember, I'm fixing problems. Why do I like using Vocal Writer? What is Vocal Writer? Okay, say for instance to yourself, instead of using compression, instead of using any dynamic plugins, what you would do on a board, right, or on your fader is, let's say for instance, now the vocal's too high, now the vocal's too low, now the vocal's too high, now it's just right, oh, now it's loud again. Usually what you would do is you would use compression to mitigate that, right? To lighten the dynamics, to bring them closer together so that when you sit the vocal or sit the sound source that you compress into the mix, it's more cohesive, meaning the difference between the loudest sound and the quietest sound is a little bit less, thus allowing you to set the volume and be in a good place where you don't have to constantly fight whether it's too loud or too low. That's usually what you use compression for. Not always, remember, never and always, throw it away. But a lot of times you use it for that, besides color and stuff. So, I use Vocal Writer a lot of times at the start. And the reason why I use Vocal Writer is because what I don't want with my compression is, I don't want my compressor to work so hard. What you'll notice is, if you have a vocal that is extremely dynamic, meaning the difference between the quietest sound and the loudest sound is great, right? When you apply compression, that compressor is going to work so hard to get that vocal or that sound source to be more cohesive. You're going to be seeing 10 dB of gain reduction because the peak is so high, right? You're going to be seeing a lot. Now, what if I told you there's a plugin that says, hey, I see the voltage or the volume of this sound source. This is what I'll do for you. No compression. What I'll do is when it's quiet or when it's really low in the threshold, I'll bring it up 4 dB. And yo, even better, when it's really high up here, I'll bring it down 2 dB. And I'll keep this vocal in between this range for you. No compression needed. It's basically you riding the fader. Kind of like how you would if you didn't have this plugin where you're like, too loud, too quiet, too loud, too quiet, just right, where you're fighting it. This plugin is going to do it. I call this the fakest AI plugin on earth.
Sound familiar to anybody out there?
Yeah, you guys connecting any dots here?
We do. We go into this pretty hard developing ours. We'll do clip gain automation and then Vocal Writer and then gain automation lane to bring up tails of things and stuff.
That's wicked.
Yeah, we go pretty deep on that.
I like the tail thing. I do that sometimes, like to bring up the tail. I like that.
I always tell everyone though, I'm always like the best guys are doing this. Just trust me on that. And this is just an example. The best guys are always doing this. This is how you get it right. This is how you get that expensive sounding vocal.
Yes. All that body and weight, like for sure. Okay, cool. So let's apply the Vocal Writer, and I already have like a little preset going, which I think is this one. Yeah, this is it right here. And I'm going to find that sweet spot and kind of get the vocals to I'm going to get the vocals in a tighter place where my compressor, where I add next, won't have to work so hard.
What is that, so a 4 decibel range?
Yes, good point. I have a 4 decibel range, meaning if it goes below the threshold, it's going to boost the volume 4 dB, okay? And if it goes above the threshold, it's going to bring it back down. So my quietness, as far as the threshold, as far as this bottom part you're seeing, anytime it goes below this threshold, it's going to bring it up 4 dB, bringing it closer to the loud stuff, which is going to help my dynamics to be a bit tighter. You'll notice it and you're going to hear it when I do it. Okay.
I can tell the way that you walk and you mean business. Know it's gonna be harder than me just being consistent. Say this with respect, girl, I got you on my hit list. You're not the type of girl that's worried about these other women. You top 5 dead alive. I'm talking pull up, baby, stay a while. But deep down I just got a feeling that you might be too much for me. But either way I wanna say you might be bad for me. So tell me if I'm wrong, are you bad for me?
Do you see and notice that on the belt parts, it's like, okay, I'll go back down to the original volume. I'll kind of go back down, and then when you get in those quiet parts, it brings it up, and it's kind of making that level a lot tighter. And now watch me bypass it back and forth. You're going to notice this thing is sitting so much better in relationship to the kick and the snare. So without first.
I can tell the way that you walk and you mean business. Know it's gonna be harder than me just being consistent. Say this with respect, girl, I got you on my hit list. You not the type of girl that's worried about these other women. You top 5 dead alive. I'm talking pull up, baby, stay a while. But deep down, I just got a feeling that you might be too much for me. But either way, I wanna say you might be bad for me. So tell me if I'm wrong.
Again, I just adjusted it. Listen close.
I can tell the way that you walk and you mean business. Know it's gonna be harder than me just being consistent. Say this with respect, girl, I got you on my hit list. You not the type of girl that's worried about these other women. You top 5 dead alive. I'm talking pull up, baby, stay a while. But deep down, I just got a feeling that you might.
What you notice is when it's bypassed, and sorry, when I engage it, it automatically just pulls it down. So the initial hit of it doing what is its job is a little wonky. Sorry for that. It's an older plugin, by the way. But when you notice it bypass, you notice that it feels like the vocal kind of falls behind the beat a bit. It doesn't feel like it's sitting up top, but it more feels like, hey, I'm sitting back here. So what the vocal rider is helping it do is it's helping it to be more consistent where the level is, so that it feels like it's sitting in its own place and kind of sitting where I put it as far as in the beat and the volume and stuff like that. Okay. So let's keep this going. We're almost there as far as where I want to land for today. I know I've loaded you with a crap ton of information, and all we did was a kick, snare, and vocal. This is so important because this is the meat and potatoes of our entire mix. But watch how fast this process starts to go. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add some compression. I'm going to add a slight bit of compression. I'm going to bring up my favorite compressor. This is my baby. I'm not going to lie to you. I've tried to fight this thing for years, and it just won't leave.
What do you mean? Like you're looking for alternatives and stuff, or what?
Dude, you know what it is? You know how you've been using something, you're like, my God, like there's other stuff, bro. But I can't let go. And they're gonna see. Watch when I do this. They're gonna see. They're gonna be like, oh my dude, the Blackie CLA 76 from Waves is my favorite like go-to compressor. Like I literally can't mix a vocal. I can't if I don't have this plugin.
Are
like,
you guys connecting? Are you guys connecting some more dots here, guys?
Yep.
You seeing some patterns?
Oh, good. Just bought this week one this week. Nice. You will man, I tell you, it has a chokehold on me. A chokehold. Okay. Let's give it a try.
And the most important thing you said, to go back to, now the compressor doesn't have to work as hard. You don't want any one thing to work very hard. The more it's used, the more destructive it is. Volume is less destructive than anything else. So the heavy lifting has been done with volume, which is what the vocal rider's doing. Now this is doing light lifting and just gluing it even more, little increment steps towards it sitting perfectly in the track.
Levels.
Right. Exactly. So now the compressor, when I compress, if I decide to compress -5 dB, it's tighter. And it's not grabbing something that's way up there now. It doesn't have to because there's nothing up there. It's consistent. The difference between the quietest sound and the loudest sound is much tighter. And you won't have to fight so much. And your compressor, you're going to notice that you're not even compressing as much now. That's the beauty. You're going to realize you're not even compressing as much, which I know a lot of us deal with over compression and stuff like that. Let's do it. So let's get a little bit of compression on here. I don't have a general rule. I'm just going to reach for it until it feels good. The only thing I will make note is I like to do a slow attack, meaning I want those transients of that vocal to shine through. And I'm going to do a pretty fast to medium release because I want those transients to kind of shine through. I want to give it life. You know what I mean? And I want to make sure I don't completely just drain all the life out of the vocal. But I want that volume and I want that power that I'm about to get from this.
I can tell the way that you walk and you mean business.
I mean, just with it on, I know it cranked the volume, but you can already feel like what the heck is happening right now. I got you. Stay tuned.
I can tell the way that you walk and you mean business. Know it's gonna be harder than me just being consistent. Say this with respect, girl, I got you on my hit list. You not the type of girl that's worried about these other women. You top 5 dead alive. I'm talking pull up, baby, stay a while. But deep down, I just got a feeling that you might be too much for me. But either way, I wanna say you might be bad for me. So tell me if I'm wrong, are you bad for me? Don't drag me along, are you bad for me? Tell me if I'm wrong, are you bad for me? Don't drag me along.
Right now what I'm doing is I'm level matching. I want to make sure that the volume is the same as it was previously, as far as what came off of the vocal rider. So I'm just matching the volume, which is beautiful because now I'm getting so much more consistency out of the vocal with adding that compression, and then all the compression that I'm doing, I'm bringing that volume back.
I can tell the way that you walk and you mean business. Know it's gonna be harder than me just being consistent. Say this with respect, girl, I got you on my hit list. You're not the type of girl that's worried about these other women. You top 5 dead alive. I'm talking pull up, baby, stay a while. But deep down I just got a feeling that you might be too much for me. But either way I wanna say you might be bad for me. So tell me if I'm wrong, are you bad for me? Don't drag me along, are you bad for me?
Okay, now what I want to do right quick is I want to listen to my reference because I want to see where I'm at with vocal wise, just to see where his vocal is sitting, if I got the vocals too hot or anything like that. One second.
Pull you closer. It's only to remind you that even on your worst days, I know you deserve it, so don't you ever try to be perfect. I can tell the way that you walk and you mean business. Know it's gonna be harder than me just being consistent. Say this with respect, girl, I got you on my hit list. Pull you closer. It's only to remind you that even on your worst days, I know you deserve it, so don't you ever try to be perfect. I can tell the way that you walk and you mean business. Know it's gonna be harder than me just being consistent. Say this with respect.
Cool. I like the level of where my vocal is as far as that's concerned. His is a little behind the beat, but I'm making the decision and would say, I don't really want to be behind the beat. I want to be up top because this vocal just has a feeling. His is a little bit more washed out too and more of a vibier thing. Mine, I really think the sound of it should be more up front. And see, this is me making a decision, a very creative decision and a major decision where I'm saying, well, do I want the vocal to feel more washed out or do I want it to feel more upfront, you know what I mean, in my mix? For me, I think I want it to be more upfront. And this is when I would probably call the client and say, hey, how would you feel about the vocal just feeling a bit more upfront? Or do you want it to feel like a vibe, as I would say, mixing around in the record? And I would make the decision based off of the client. And I would also probably send them 2 different mixes, just to be like, hey, pick which one you like and play with it a little bit. But just know, I already like where I'm at. I haven't added any high-end harmonics, nothing. But we're already sitting in a place where we're up top. And that's a mastered record. Keep that in mind. All right. Cool. All right, so I'm listening to this. And the next thing I'm going to do right quick is I'm going to add a bit of parallel compression. But first, what I want to do is I want to add a little bit of EQ. I want to do some additive EQing. I want to see sound-wise or bright-wise or high-end-wise how I want to bring in some of that high-end, which I have a favorite plugin for this, by the way, which I'll show you. So let's check this out.
I can tell the way that you walk and you mean business. Know it's gonna be harder than me just being consistent. Say this with respect, girl, I got you on my hit list. You're not the type of girl that's worried about these other women. You top 5 dead alive. I'm talking pull up, baby, stay a while. But deep down I just got a feeling that you might be too much for me. But either way I wanna say you might be bad for me. So tell me if I'm wrong, are you bad for me? Don't drag me along, are you bad for me? Tell me if I'm wrong, are you bad for me? Don't drag me along. I can tell the way that you walk and you mean business. Know it's gonna be harder than me just being consistent. Say this with respect, girl, I got you on my hit list. You're not the type of girl that's worried about these other women. You top 5 dead alive. I'm talking pull up, baby, stay a while. But deep down I just got a feeling that you might be too much for me. But either way I wanna say you might be bad for me. So tell me if I'm wrong, are you bad for me? Don't drag me along, are you bad for me? Tell me if I'm wrong, are you bad for me?
So added just a tad bit of high end, and I'm just doing simple things. I'm not getting real surgical with stuff. I took a little bit more of that 3 kilohertz range out, just pulled it off because it was feeling a little bit harsh on my ear. I can already sense it and feel it. Added a little bit of high end, took off some of that harshness. I'm gonna go down to the bottom and just see if I'm gonna see if I feel like some of that low end, I can get rid of just a little bit of it. If it doesn't feel right, I'm taking it off. I just want to see and experiment myself. If I can get rid of some muddiness, maybe.
I can tell the way that you walk and you mean business. Know it's gonna be harder than me just being consistent. Say this with respect, girl, I got you on my hit list. You not the type of girl that's worried about these other women. You top 5 dead alive. I'm talking pull up, baby, stay a while. But deep down, I just got a feeling that you might be too much for me. But either way, I wanna say you might be bad for me. So tell me if I'm wrong. Are you bad for me? Don't drag me along. Are you bad for me? Tell me if I'm
Cool. And now the very last thing for now that I'm gonna do to the vocal, because I'm liking where it's sitting and feeling and stuff like that, is I'm gonna add a wee bit of parallel compression. And no, I'm not from the UK, and I just said a wee bit. I don't know who that was, but
It was
you know
Rob.
that guy.
You're,
It was Rob. Okay.
you're part of the team now. You got Rob rubbing
Rob.
off on you already.
The Rob spirit is just all around.
Yeah.
I'm dead. Okay, cool. So let's do some parallel compression. Long story short, what you're gonna see is you're gonna see me do it kind of how I did the snare. I have a send. I'm doing it pre-fader. Gonna crank it, and I'm sending it to an 1176, smashing it to its oblivion, and also a little bit of a limiter as well. Okay, so I'm smashing this. The snot out of this. So let's take this off right quick.
I can tell the way that you walk and you mean business. Know it's gonna be harder than me just being consistent. Say this with respect, girl, I got you on my hit list. You not the type of
Whoopsie, sorry.
I can tell the way that you walk and you mean business. Know it's gonna be harder than me just being consistent. Say this with respect, girl, I got you on my hit list. You not the type of
Sounds like garbage, right?
I can tell the way that you walk and you mean business. Know it's gonna be harder than me just being consistent. Say this with respect, girl, I got you on my hit list. You not the type of girl that's worried about these other women. You top 5 dead alive. I'm talking pull up, baby, stay a while. But deep down, I just got a feeling that you might be too much for me. But either way, I'm gonna say you might be bad for me. I can tell the way that you walk and you mean business. Know it's gonna be harder than me just being consistent. Say this with respect, girl, I got you on my hit list. You not the type of girl that's worried about these other women. You top 5 dead alive. I'm talking pull up, baby, stay a while. But deep down, I just got a feeling that you might be.
And sometimes I might sit and I might not like the sound of the 1176 for the parallel. So sometimes I'll go on over to this plugin, which I don't know if anybody knows what this is. This is the MV2. I love this compressor. It's an upward compressor. We will get into that a whole nother day. But just know I'm about to compress this. We'll get into what upward compression is another day. But let me just compress this. Remember, I'm looking to smash it to snot. But I'm looking for a sound. I'm looking for something that feels good, though.
I can tell the way that you walk and you mean business. Know it's gonna be harder than me just being consistent. Say this with respect, girl, I got you on my hit list. You not the type of girl that's worried about these other. I can tell the way that you walk and you mean business. Know it's gonna be harder than me just being consistent. Say this with respect, girl, I got you on my hit list. You not the type of girl that's worried about these other women. You top 5 dead.
And that's the sound I was looking for. There's just so much there. Like, there's just so much there. So much garbage that I want.
I can tell the way that you walk and you mean business. Know it's gonna be harder than me just being consistent. Say this with respect, girl, I got you on my hit list. You not the type of girl that's worried about these other women. You top 5 dead alive. I'm talking pull up, baby, stay a while. But deep down, I just got a feeling that you might be too much for me. But either way, I'm gonna say you might be bad for me.
Cool. So that vocal is smashed. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring that in parallel to my lead vocal. One sec.
I can tell the way that you walk and you mean business. Know it's gonna be harder than me just being consistent. Say this with respect, girl, I got you on my hit list. You not the type of girl that's worried about these other women. You top 5 dead alive. I'm talking pull up.
Listen to this difference. Listen to this difference. Without first.
I can tell the way that you walk and you mean business. Know it's gonna be harder than me just being consistent. Say this with respect, girl, I got you on my hit list. You not the type of girl that's worried about these other women. You top 5 dead alive.
Right like Jake is doing. Right up front, like super bright up front, and just feels a lot more powerful. Listen to that one more time.
I can tell the way that you walk and you mean business. Know it's gonna be harder than me just being consistent. Say this with respect, girl, I got you on my hit list. You're not the type of girl that's worried about these other women. You top 5 dead alive.
Cool. And what you'll notice is, you notice that we got more brightness out of it. We got more body, a lot of the things. We just got so much out of that parallel compressor. So with this being at this stage now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drive outside of the line, and we're about to wrap this in a second. We're about to drive outside right now. I just want to let you know this is going to be a bit unorthodox. Now that I got the kick, snare, vocal kind of to a place where I'm like, cool, I'm okay with this, I am now going to go over to my mix bus. And what I'm going to do with my mix bus is these two things. I'm going to build these things called safety nets. The first safety net I want to put you guys onto is a regular limiter, the L2 limiter. Actually, a limiter that I really don't like the sound of. Why am I using a limiter, or about to mix into a limiter that I don't even like the sound of? Reason why is because it's kind of the philosophy of like monitors. NS10s that you've seen at all of these two studios, they're not great sounding monitors, but why does everyone use them? Why are they such a staple? Some people say, or the philosophy behind them, to some, are that if I can make them sound good in this, they're going to sound great everywhere. And this is also a mastering technique as well. I'm sure Caleb and Jake, of course, know this, where sometimes your mix source or things that you do, you need to monitor those things in different sources. So for me, what the limiter allows me to do is, and mixing into it is, it allows me to see or accentuate what's going to happen when this goes to mastering. You know, a mastering guy or girl may use a limiter. They're going to use processing that will mess with my dynamics. Not a lot, but somewhat. So I want to know, when I'm mixing, how can I protect my mastering engineer? You know, how can I make sure that when he or she puts a limiter or any compression on, that, oh, I know what's going to happen already slightly in a way. So the reason why potentially for me personally, why I mix into the limiter is because it helps me to build a safety net for future proofing it in the next process of the mastering engineer. This is my process. This is not an always or never, like I always tell you. That's wild to say that. That was redundant. But I'm not saying I sit here and recommend to do this. This is just my process. You understand what I'm saying? And I want to make that very clear. What you know about everything is the same. It's fundamental. Use that. I'm just showing you my way and giving you perspective, which is really and truly what this is all about. Just giving you perspective. So I'm going to mix into this limiter. And what I'm going to do is I'm not going to limit a lot. All I want is to kiss it. And the reason why I only want to kiss the limiter is because I'm not really looking to smash it and see how loud it can be, but I'm really just looking for, hey, what is this limiter going to accentuate? What is it going to bring up in my mix? You'll see what I mean. So let's bring this limiter down until I start to kiss it. I'm talking about maybe a dB of gain reduction, maybe.
I can tell the way that you walk and you mean business. Know it's gonna be harder than me just being consistent. Say this with respect, girl, I got you on my hit list. You're not the type of girl that's worried about these other women. You top 5 dead alive. I'm talking pull up, baby, stay a while. But deep down I just got a feeling that you might be too much for me. But either way I wanna say you might be bad for me. So tell me if I'm wrong, are you bad for me?
So you see the occasional hit, right? And you know what this limiter just told me? It told me, and I looked at, hey, what are you reacting to? And I noticed that, you know what it's reacting to? The snare. So now in my head I go, oh, if I just mitigate some of that sound in the snare, some of that crack in the snare, I can probably gain almost 2 dB of headroom just by getting rid of or finding or seeing, hey, where in the snare is adding that huge spike of audio. Safety net. It gave me that information. I didn't know that, but now that I see it in my meter, I'm like, oh, that snare transient is taking up a lot of headroom. So now I know, oh, I can back off on that a bit to make space and make sure that it's not eating in the limiter. So now what I'm going to do is,
So guys,
I'm going to,
real quick.
Go ahead, Jake.
No, you
Yep.
go ahead. You're probably going to say the same thing.
This is the big difference from what I was talking about earlier. Some people think they need to mix into compressors and limiters to make things sound good, and that's used to cover up problems in the mix. This is exactly what we were talking about yesterday, using mastering type tools to inform yourself about what's going on in your mix before you bounce it down to stereo. Now
Yeah,
he knows where the transients are coming from. He can work
Yep.
with the
Yeah,
other
dude.
tool he's about to use is going to give him some information. It's exactly the same.
Yep, limiting
Yep.
exposes everything. He's thinking with the end in mind here, right? This is all creating a perfect synergy, right? Like he's using the limiter to expose any potential issues that are going to happen down the line. So I'm mixing into it or through it. He's more or less using it as a check, right?
Yes.
Making sense?
I'm looking at the
One,
chat.
one in the chat. One in the chat. If you're following here, if you're starting to link these things up from what we talked about yesterday, if all of this is starting to sink in, yeah.
But it's so cool to see another perspective. It's been really fun to watch this. This is really, really cool. The principles are the same. Some of the techniques are slightly different. Some are going to work for different folks, and that's the power of this.
Yep.
Right. Heck yeah. Well,
It's
we're
Dane.
almost there. Hey, Dane. Hey, hi-yo.
Hey
Dane is here.
yo, hey yo.
Hi-yo.
Just coming in to say hello and to see the magical fingers and brain at work from Devon here. So
I really missed you yesterday.
I know,
Thank you, man. Thank you,
I know
Dane.
everyone, and I know it was a struggle getting
Jake
along.
went,
without
Jake
me.
went hard under the bus.
Dude.
Oh my gosh. He tried to
Hard
just,
under the
bro,
bus.
dude, like,
I
we'll
tried.
talk.
I tried to put all the lipstick on that pig.
Terrible. It was so
I ran out. I ran out of lipstick.
I know.
I was so scared. I was like, what did I send you? I was like, I didn't send that.
Devon was sweating so hard.
Yeah.
Oh
By the
my
way, guys, I don't know if you knew this, but I didn't tell Devon that that's how that was going to go before yesterday's session. He had no idea.
Just
Oh,
No
straight trip.
idea.
dude, that
Sweating.
makes it
Sweating.
so
I was
much
like-
better.
And then,
Oh.
and then Jake tried to fix it, and he was way under the bus, man. He was rough.
It was bad. It was just bad all the way around. It was just a mess all the way around.
It's just like caught in the wheel. Just
Got caught in the wheel chamber. It was just worst case scenario.
Anyways,
Literally what
Devon, just wanted to say what's up. I'm actually popping out. Just wanted to say what's up. Thanks for doing
Gotcha.
this.
Of course. Thanks for having me on the team, man. You know, like this is going to be a regular occurrence. You know.
Stoked, pumped. All right, guys. Adios.
Heck yeah.
See you, Dane.
Dane out.
Pay attention, y'all. All right, see ya.
Big facts. Cool. So where we left off, and we're almost there. Basically, what I did was I got the limiter, and now I seen that my snare was a little too hot as far as where it was cracking, and I can make two decisions. Either I can turn the snare down, or I can kind of find where the snare is cracking a bit and kind of mitigate that and do some maybe multi-band compression, which is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to find where the crack of that snare is, and I'm going to help kind of tail it back just a bit so it's not hitting my limiter so much, which would allow me to get even more volume because now I can bring down the limiter even more, right? Because it's not hitting that limiter so much. So this is why I do it, so it helps me to kind of know, oh, you can gain something here if you just back off over there, and that's it. So I'm going to go on over to my snare. I'm going to put an MB on right quick, and then let's take this stuff off. One sec. Take this off. What I want to do is I just want to hear the snare. One sec.
I can tell the way that you walk and you mean business. No, it's gonna be harder than me.
Okay, I'm looking for. Well, we nailed it. It's like right there where it's a little too harsh and it's a little bit too like just attack. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh, listen to the difference. AB without first. Sorry, I did that all wrong. One sec. So we mitigated that a little bit, and that would have been hurting people's ears consistently if it was there. Shout out to the limiter for letting me know, you know, like, oh, this is I'm going to bring that up a lot if you limit me. I'm just letting you know. So it helped me to kind of say, okay, well, let's fix the balance of that snare a little bit. And I may do more of that later, but for now, that helped me a lot with just getting rid of that, just kind of mitigating that more. And I would do it even more. I'm not afraid to make big moves if it sounds better. That's my thing. But I mitigated a bit, and now I got my limiter to where I want it. I'm cool. So let's have some fun now. So now that I got my limiter in place, kick, snare, vocal in place, guess what I'm about to do? I'm about to turn up the faders. Let me see where the party's at. Let me see where everything kind of belongs, and I'm going to basically start my fader mix and see where I want things to sit. And of course this is going to change, but I'm going to get it to a general place where I'm like, all right, here's the house. I built it. So let's do that now.
I can settle. I can tell the way that you walk and you mean business. Know it's gonna be harder than me just being consistent. Say this with respect, girl.
And I'm very aware of the sibilants. The limiter let me know that that's being accented. It's all good. We'll get there. Yeah. I know. I'll get there. Don't worry about it. For right now, let's just keep it going, and let me just get a fader mix going.
I can tell the way that you walk and you mean business. Know it's gonna be harder than me just being consistent. Say this with respect, girl, I got you on my hit list. You're not the type of girl that's worried about these other women. You top 5 dead alive. I'm talking pull up, baby, stay a while. But deep down, I just got a feeling that you might be too much for me. But either way, I wanna say you might be bad for me. So tell me if I'm wrong. Are you bad for me? Don't drag me along. Are you bad for me? Tell me if I'm wrong. Are you bad for me? Don't drag me along. I can tell the way that you walk and you mean business. Know it's gonna be harder than me just being consistent. Say this with respect, girl, I got you on my hit list. You're not the type of girl that's worried about these other women. You top 5 dead alive. I'm talking pull up, baby, stay a while. But deep down, I just got a feeling that you might be too much for me. But either way, I wanna say you might be bad for me.
Woo!
So tell me if I'm wrong. Are you bad for me? Don't drag me along. Are you bad for me? Tell me if I'm wrong. Are you bad for me? Don't drag me along.
And right quick, let's just listen to the original just for spits and giggles. Listen close.
I can tell the way that you walk. I can tell the way that you walk and you mean business. Know it's gonna be harder than me just being consistent. Say this with respect, girl, I got you on my hit list. You're not the type of girl that's worried about these other women. I can tell the way that you walk and you mean business. Know it's gonna be harder than me just being consistent. Say this with respect, girl, I got you on my hit list. You're not the type of girl that's worried about these other women. You top 5 dead alive. I'm talking pull up, baby, stay a while. But deep down, I just got a feeling that you might be too much for me.
And I got one more last move before I would take a break, and we'll end this whole session. The last thing right now I'm gonna put on my mix bus is the guard particle. And this is the last thing I'll explain to you. We'll hear it, and then we'll be on our way. I like to mix into the guard particle. And the reason why I like to mix into the guard particle is because it does something pretty special. When I've listened or I've spoken to Jason Joshua about this, well, not about this specifically, but I've just listened to him ad nauseum. And basically what this plugin does for him, or what he's described it as, is it gives him the sound of an SSL 9K. I'm not sure if that's a specific board, but it gives him that sound of an SSL 9K, that separation, that clarity, that saturation that he looks for in a board, in a modern day board. I really enjoy what the plugin does, just naturally on. It is applying, I'll be honest, a little bit of compression slightly to mids, lows, and highs. I mean, very, very slightly. Mostly what it's doing is adding saturation, kind of like what a board would give you. So this is kind of like me sending it out to another board and just getting the sound of that analog circuitry and those nuances and those harmonics. So it's giving me that. And it's also has these powerful sections that are indicators, letting me know where my highs are, where my mids are, and where my lows are as I feed into the entire thing. So I wanted to make that clear, what it's doing and how it feels. And basically these indicators, once again, always and never. I'm not saying that when it hits the green on the mids or the highs and stuff like that, that's correct, but I've grown to like what it's translated as far as saying, hey, that's too much mid. And then I go in the car and I'm like, oh, it was right. That was too much mid, or that's too much low. And I said, oh, wow, that was right. Or too less of the kick in the lows. And I'm like, oh, wow, it's pretty right. So this is going through proper testing. Anytime you add new tools to your arsenal, make sure that you're testing it. See if it is lying to you or if it translates well in the environments that you're actually mixing and stuff like that in. So I'm going to engage the guard particle. I do level match it. So I did turn it down on the output because it does add a little volume. And I don't like that. You know, I always want to make sure that I'm not adding volume and tricking myself. I want to see what it does. So I'm going to do a before and after with the guard particle off and then with it on. And I'm going to listen to it right quick. Listen close. Without first.
I can tell the way that you walk and you mean business. Know it's gonna be harder than me just being consistent. Say this with respect, girl, I got you on my hit list. You're not the type of girl that's worried about these other women. Top 5 dead alive. I'm talking pull up, baby, stay a while. But deep down, I just got a feeling that you might be too much for me. But either way, I'm gonna say you might be bad for me. So tell me if I'm wrong. Are you bad for me? Don't drag me along. Are you bad for me?
A sound that I like. That's, you can use your opinion on that as far as, you know, how that sounds. But once again, I want to be clear. I'm not doing a lot. That thing is not making, it's not this huge move, but man, is it giving me a feeling that makes me feel all warm and fuzzy inside as far as the saturation and the whiff that it gives me, mimicking what Jason Joshua has said is kind of like the analog saturation on a SSL board. Last thing I'll show you is I want you to pay attention to the indicators that are hitting the greens on this particular plugin where you see here that I was telling you about. It's basically saying what is a good range for the mids, what's a good range for the highs, and what is a good range for the lows. Now, granted, I'm like you. I'm like, says who? You're right. I tested it to see where I'm at as far as how it translates. I like what it does. So I'm just listening to it. Let me just take a look at it.
I can tell the way that you walk and you mean business. Know it's gonna be harder than me just being consistent. Say this with respect, girl, I got you on my hit list. You're not the type of girl that's worried about these other women. Top 5 dead alive. I'm talking pull up, baby, stay a while. But deep down, I just...
So I can already see I'm going to benefit from adding some more mids and stuff like that, which I'm going to get to. But let me listen to my reference. And once I listen to my reference, I'm going to A/B it and kind of see where I'm at. And then usually I'll go take a break, order some Chinese food, and call it a day. So right now, what I'll do is let me turn up my reference. Let me take a listen to it. And I just want to see where I'm at in comparison to my reference.
Pull you closer, pull you closer. It's only to remind you that even on your worst days, I know you deserve it. I can tell the way that you walk and you mean business. Know it's gonna be harder than me just being consistent. Say this with respect, girl, I got you on my hit list. You're not the type of girl that's pull you closer. It's only to remind you that even on your worst days, I know you deserve it. So don't you ever try to be perfect.
Remind people what they're listening for here. It's a specific thing.
Yes. So just to be clear, what I'm looking for is, am I competing? That's what I'm looking for. I'm I'm looking to see if I'm in the ballpark. Am I competing with him? Am I in a range that I feel comfortable with going against it? Granted, we've done barely anything. To some of you may be looking at it, but understand my process of not trying to get it to sound exactly the same as his, but rather him guiding me, or that record guiding me to make the decisions that have landed us in this place where this thing is hitting right now. And if I was to tell you tomorrow that I'm going to get this to hit 20 times harder, you probably wouldn't believe me, but believe you me, I'm going to get this thing to hit even harder without taking up headroom at all. Stay tuned for that and make sure you come next week. but I'll stop there. And I'll let my guys take over from there. And I'll
Awesome.
unshare my screen.
Great stuff. Fire emojis in chat for Devon. What a great session. Very informative. We haven't even done any of the enhancing yet. No spatial stuff, no reverb, no saturation really. A couple
None.
little things. You got the kick, the snare, and the vocal kind of dialed in. You knew where to place those. You kind of wanted that vocal to sit right on top there. With the kick-ish almost, the snare tucked slightly back, it seemed that's kind of what you were shooting for. And we got there, and then everything else, it took you 5-10 minutes and all the other tracks were in place. Now it's about, are there any last, and I think what you're going to do offline now is if there are any last conflicting frequencies, different things, you're going to clean all that up. He'll show us that tomorrow, but then tomorrow is going to be absolutely incredible because he's going to show you some amazing the concepts he's going to talk about with tomorrow in terms of saturation and space and different things like that. This stuff is really, really powerful, very, very crazy stuff. And it really makes stuff sound cool. So you're not going to want to miss that. Come back. We'll be enhancing everything. We'll be digging deep into that. Really quick though, we want you to kind of follow along if you can. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen really quick. Go ahead and do this for yourself. Just try it. Try it for the sake of finding something that works for you. Maybe you'll find a new workflow. Maybe you'll find something that you've been missing that's very powerful for you. And you can't know that until you just really dive in and try it for yourself. So whatever you're working on in terms of a mix, save an alternate version of it. Save what you have now. You can do a save as or in Logic or whatever. You can do an alternate. There's different ways to do this for different DAWs. Go ahead and save an alternate version and then just start over. Remove everything. Okay, bring all your faders back to nominal, remove everything, and start again with the process that we saw today. So prep and edit your session appropriately. If you haven't done that, gain stage everything properly. If you have editing to do, make sure that's all done. We want to get that out of the way so that you can focus on mixing when it's time to mix. Devon had already done that today, so he could just focus on mixing. So do all of that, and then attack your mix with the kick, snare, vocals first technique. Try it out. See what you think. Work on getting those just great and in the similar ballpark to your reference and sitting in a great correlation with each other. And then bring in all the other elements. The bass last. You notice that we didn't dive into that too much, but he added the bass last. Maybe you can talk about that a little bit tomorrow. I know that there's some method to that madness. Build everything around it and see what it does for you. See if it prompts anything. See if it inspires anything. And feel free to share that initial mix in school just for fun. How far can you push it just with that much? How good can you get it sounding with just that much? Because you should be able to get it. There were a few people in the comments going, it's already starting to sound pretty professional. We're gonna send it to the moon tomorrow. Don't you worry about that. But you're right. It is starting to sound professional. It's getting closer to that. And so see how far you can push it with just these techniques. It's fun. Go explore this and post it if you want to, and then come back tomorrow and we'll have the rest for you all, the enhancements, the space, the saturation, the cherry on top, the magic sparkle dust, all the good stuff.
Absolutely. I did see someone mention, hey, what about distortion? That's saturation. To those who, the person that asked that, as far as like, oh, you're not going to add distortion? That's saturation. And we'll explain that tomorrow for sure.
Distortion is saturation, yeah. They were, some people were worried about that distortion you have on your bass, that production choice there, but, different strokes for different folks. A lot of people are distorting their basses these days, but I think he'll probably dial that in a little bit tomorrow so it's not competing with anything. And once he does that, see what you think then, because that's a cool vibe. Yeah, can't wait to see y'all tomorrow. It's been a fun session. Thank you so much, Devon. Nuggets, words of wisdom, magic just floating around. If you weren't inspired, if you didn't get something out of that session, you're doing something wrong. You're not listening, because that was magic stuff. Hey, Michael. Nice of you to show up, man.
You guys crushed it. That mix sounds great. It's
Thanks,
fixed.
man. Thanks, dude.
Michael, I had a quick question for you. Where can we see the replay? Is there going to be a replay posted?
Replay will be posted in school. I'll be sending out an email as well. If you're not in school, it's too late.
Where do I get the free plugin?
Ask Nick. Nick, you can let us know in the chat.
Nick knows where the
Everybody hit up
That's-
Nick.
It's a very valuable replay. I'm not gonna lie. It's like that was a very valuable replay. I feel like anyone that if you can get that replay, like that's a valuable replay.
Oh,
Super
and
valuable.
send it to anyone that you want. Like that's the other thing too,
Mhm.
is like we do these sessions obviously to help you guys and everything, but please tell your friends, tell anybody who's interested in this stuff and spread the word, because the more we do that, the more cool events we can put on and stuff like that. So
Yep.
thanks.
Pay it forward. Thanks, guys. We'll see y'all tomorrow. Same time, same place.